The Sorcerer, The Path to Transcendence starting from Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 Invitation. To him, Law's attack seemed like child's play, so feeble and powerless, completely failing to demonstrate the full power of the Operation Fruit. Madama Law, undeterred by the failure of his attack, unleashed his power once more. Injection shot, he aimed the tip of his blade at Weiss, veins bulging on his forehead. Aiming precisely at Weiss's heart, Law unleashed a powerful force, unleashing the shot. A powerful shockwave whistled through the air, blasting towards Weiss like a cannonball. However, Weiss remained unfazed. He simply raised his hand and gently swatted it, redirecting the seemingly unstoppable shockwave like a fly swatted away by an invisible hand. It flew towards the nearby rock, piercing through it. The impact shattered the rock, sending rubble flying and sending up a cloud of dust. How could this happen? Pekin's eyes widened in disbelief. Law's attack is completely ineffective. Shocky was also stunned, his usually calm face now filled with shock. He stared blankly at the scene before him, his fear of Weiss growing like wild weeds. They had never seen anyone so easily deflect Law's attack. It was completely beyond their comprehension. Beepo was also stunned. Law's eyes widened, their once sharp gleam now dull. He stared at Weiss, never expecting that the blow he had delivered with all his might could not even make his opponent move a step. His killer move was as fragile as a bubble in front of Weiss, easily deflected. This harsh reality struck him like a hammer, cracking his confidence. Can I really avenge Coruscant now? The thought flashed through Law's mind, like a flash of lightning in the dark night, fleeting but piercing. Coruscant's warm smile, the image of her sacrificing herself to protect him, became clearer and clearer in his memory. He had always pursued revenge, striving to improve his abilities. But now, facing such a formidable foe, he began to doubt his own abilities. Luo, however, was only slightly depressed. He quickly adjusted himself, knowing now was not the time to wallow in self-doubt. His companions were by his side, needing his protection. He couldn't afford to fall here, much less put them in danger. You guys run. I'll hold him back. Luo spun around, unhesitatingly stepping in front of his companions. Nonsense. How could I let you die alone? Pekin shouted, clenching his fists and taking a step forward to stand beside Luo. Companions should live and die together. There was no way he was abandoning Luo to escape alone at this moment. Yes, we agreed, Shaki echoed. There was no fear in his eyes, only trust in his companions and a determination to stick by his side. He gripped his weapon tighter and stood shoulder to shoulder with Luo and Pekin, ready to face the crisis together. Even the most timid Beepo overcame his fear. His furry body trembled slightly, but he firmly assumed a fighting stance. His round eyes fixed on Weiss. Though frightened, he didn't flinch in the face of his companions. What a remarkable team, Weiss nodded slightly, a hint of envy in his eyes. He had wandered through various worlds for so long, always alone, and had never before found such a group of friends willing to risk their lives for him. This pure friendship was truly precious to him. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Weiss's voice was calm and gentle, breaking the tense atmosphere. He gestured towards the spaceship and said with a smile, "Want to go up for a drink?" This sudden invitation caught the Heart Pirates off guard. They looked at each other in confusion, unsure of Weiss's intentions. Huh? Law sheathed his sword and slung it over his shoulder, his lips curling slightly. Interesting. He stared at Weiss for a moment before accepting the invitation. Law's courage and generosity were on full display in this moment. He knew that, given the circumstances, if Weiss wanted to kill them, there was no need for her to do so. Since Weiss had offered such an invitation, he had the courage to accept it and explore the intentions of this mysterious man. The moment Weiss and the Heart Pirates stepped onto the ship, they were like children stumbling upon a mysterious treasure cave, instantly bursting into awe at what they saw. Every corner and every device exuded a captivating sense of novelty, as if they had not entered a ship but a whole new world. Welcome back, Master. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice rang out, and number 001 came forward to greet them. Slave, Law frowned, a flicker of dissatisfaction in his eyes. In his mind, the idea of obeying orders and serving a master easily reminded him of slavery, and he had always resented such unequal relationships. It's a robot, Weiss replied with a smile. "Robot," the others exclaimed in unison, their eyes lighting up. "Real or fake?" Pekin's eyes widened. He leaned forward, wanting to get a closer look at the supposed robot, his face filled with disbelief. "It's so lifelike," Shaggy couldn't help but exclaim. Bebo, like a curious baby, circled around 001. He tilted his head to peer into 001's eyes, then patted its body with his paw, his voice adorably whimpering. Lo lowered his hat, his eyes scrutinizing, and asked, "Are you really an alien?" "That's certainly true," Weiss replied with a smile, handing Lo a glass of wine. The glass itself looked unusually thin, yet strangely resilient. The wine within exuded a captivating aroma. "This is astonishing." Lo took the glass and took a sip, the rich liquor spreading through his mouth. He struggled to process this barrage of shocking news, his mind racing, trying to integrate these new discoveries with his prior understanding. Weiss smiled at the surprised expressions on Luo and his companions' faces. Just then, the spaceship started up, unnoticed. The craft slowly ascended, its surroundings transforming as it climbed higher. Through the ship's viewports, the sky outside unfolded like a vibrant, colorful scroll. In the azure, jewel-like sky, pristine white clouds resembled soft cotton candy, refracting a rainbow of colors in the sunlight. The sun in the distance shone dazzlingly, its golden rays piercing the clouds like a sharp sword, showering the earth. From the sky, the islands below resembled green gems set on azure silk, while the surrounding sea shimmered like countless tiny diamonds on the surface. The dreamlike scenery captivated the group, their eyes fixed on the windows, filled with wonder and ecstasy, as if forgetting all their worries and doubts. Chapter 277 Purpose. "So, Mr. Alien, what are your goals?" Law stared at Weiss with a piercing gaze, his eyes filled with wariness and suspicion. He didn't believe this enigmatic man had come to this world merely for sightseeing, just as he didn't believe the ocean could harbor unprovoked kindness. "This world does have something that attracts me." Weiss's lips curled slightly, staring at Law with a half-smile. "Devil fruits are very interesting." Hearing this, Law instinctively took a step back, as if Weiss's words carried an invisible pressure. However, he quickly steadied himself and stopped. A subtle flicker of panic flashed across his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by determination. He knew that facing such a powerful being, he couldn't show any fear. "Can aliens eat devil fruits?" Beppo asked, tilting his furry head and blinking his big, round eyes. His innocent eyes were filled with curiosity. To him, the question was like an intriguing puzzle. "I didn't say I was going to eat them, I was just using them for research." Weiss smiled at Beppo, his smile gentle and devoid of any malice. "What a waste. Devil fruits are the secret treasures of the sea." Pekin frowned. "Devil fruits are extremely precious, each one representing a powerful force capable of changing a person's destiny." "That's right, eating one grants incredible power," Shachi agreed. "In this sea, devil fruit users often possess extraordinary strength. They are like legends of the sea, objects of admiration and fear for countless people. The Grand Admiral, the 3 Admirals, and the 3 Emperors of the sea are all devil fruit users. This speaks volumes about the rarity of devil fruits." Weiss smiled, he had no interest in becoming one. In his view, while devil fruits could grant immense power, such power also came with numerous limitations and risks. Moreover, compared to his own power system, devil fruit power wasn't what he sought. "How many devil fruits do you need?" Law, assuming Weiss wanted him to help collect them, frowned slightly, calculating silently. He knew that if Weiss truly intended to collect a large number of devil fruits, it would be a nearly impossible task, but he still wanted to gauge the extent of Weiss's appetite. The more, the better. The more powerful the devil fruit, the better. Weiss's simple and direct response startled them all. The request was truly outrageous, like a bottomless pit, daunting. "Even the world government wouldn't agree to that," Law said, rubbing his head with a look of resignation. "The united government that has ruled this world for 800 years, Weiss's tone was tinged with obvious contempt. Hearing the contempt in Weiss's voice, Law warned, "Don't underestimate them." Law was well aware of the world government's power and terror, its vast military, complex intelligence network, and mysterious power structure. Across this ocean, the world government was like an omnipresent shadow, looming over every corner, and no one could easily escape its control. However, Law didn't know that Weiss's knowledge far surpassed his own, and that what he considered might in Weiss's eyes was likely just the tip of the iceberg. 800 years and still haven't integrated the world into one nation? How foolish, how incompetent. Weiss couldn't understand what the world government was doing. With such a long reign and abundant resources, it still allowed the world to remain in such a state of chaos. He didn't know about IM's existence. Nor did he know the deeper secrets behind the world government. But superficially, he held it in extremely low regard. The others were speechless when they heard Weiss dismiss the world government. In their world, the world government was a godlike being, a symbol of absolute authority. Weiss's casual disparagement left the heart pirates momentarily bewildered. They didn't know if Weiss was truly confident or simply ignorant. "So what do you need from me?" Law frowned slightly, his eyes filled with a hint of doubt and caution as he looked directly at Weiss. He knew this mysterious alien wouldn't reveal so much information to him for no reason. He must have a purpose, and that purpose was likely related to him and his companions. Weiss smiled, holding a shimmering crystal between his slender fingers. He handed it to Luo. The crystal shone captivatingly in the soft light of the spaceship, its interior shimmering with wisps of mist, a dreamlike illusion that beckoned him to investigate. "What is this?" Luo reached out to take the crystal, his eyes filled with confusion. He turned it over and over in his hands, trying to find any clues, but aside from its immense beauty and exquisiteness, it offered nothing special, at least not yet. "Focus your attention," Weiss whispered softly, his voice calm and gentle, yet carrying an undeniable power. Luo nodded, took a deep breath, and then, as Weiss instructed, focused his attention on the crystal. At first, he saw only the slow movement of light and shadow within the crystal, nothing remarkable. But as his focus deepened, the crystal seemed to come alive, suddenly flashing with light. Then, a breathtaking scene unfolded before his eyes. He saw a massive planet, emitting a mysterious and captivating blue glow, floating quietly in the vast universe. A vast continent surrounded the center of the planet. Beyond it, countless islands dotted the planet's oceans. These islands varied in size and shape, some resembled crescent moons, others resembled giant mushrooms, and still others resembled mysterious beasts lurking beneath the surface. Each island had its own unique topography and color, like sparkling pearls scattered across a blue satin, forming a magnificent painting. "What is this?" A map. Law's eyes widened, and he quickly realized what was happening. A surge of delight surged in his heart. He knew that such a map would be an invaluable treasure for pirates sailing the vast seas. "That's right," Weiss's voice suddenly appeared in his mind, whispering in his ear, "this map will be very helpful on your journey." Where did this map come from? Weiss's ship possessed extremely powerful exploration capabilities. For Weiss, using the spacecraft's advanced detection technology to explore a planet's topography is as easy as observing our surroundings from land. The spacecraft's detection equipment can emit special signal waves that can penetrate the planet's atmosphere and reach every corner of the planet. The collected information is then integrated and analyzed, and finally presented in a visual form within this magical crystal. Chapter 278 The Next Target. Once this map gets out, it will undoubtedly unleash a frenzy of scramble across the world. The information it contains is incredibly valuable, clearly showing the location of every island and even obscure routes hidden in the vast ocean. Perhaps even the world government, which has ruled the world for 800 years, never possessed such a detailed and meticulous map. The value of this map is beyond mortal imagination. Needless to say, it is like a mountain of gold in the ocean. Pirates, bounty hunters, and those with ulterior motives will stop at nothing to obtain it. Law knows that there are no free lunches. He wouldn't be so naive as to think that Weiss would simply give him such a precious gift. "What do you need from me?" "The devil fruits are scattered everywhere." "I need help," Wes said frankly, not concealing his purpose. With the devil fruits scattered everywhere, searching for them alone would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. He needed someone as capable and courageous as Law to assist him in this quest. "Don't worry, I won't let you work for nothing," Weiss said, arms outstretched, her tone brimming with confidence and generosity. "Anything you ask for is welcome." His gaze was sincere and open, without a trace of pretense or disguise, like a king with untold wealth offering a tempting olive branch to Law. Law frowned slightly, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, but it was clear he was already tempted. He knew the value of this map all too well. In his opinion, it alone was worth exchanging a devil fruit for it. "Devil fruits aren't easy to obtain," Law said, raising his head slightly to look at Weiss. "Across this vast ocean, devil fruits are as rare as meteors, and their appearance is accompanied by fierce competition and endless bloodshed. Not only do they face competition from other pirate groups, But they also have to contend with covert meddling from the world government. Of course I know. It's the same with espers. Just mark them for me when you find them. Weiss smiled. You want to hunt espers? Law suddenly realized, his eyes filled with shock. While conflicts between espers might occur on this ocean, directly targeting them for hunting was an extremely bold and dangerous idea. Such an action would undoubtedly provoke countless disputes, trigger a united resistance from espers, and might even draw the attention of the world government. It's useless. Killing an esper will cause the devil fruit to resurrect randomly somewhere in the world, Law said hastily, assuming Weiss didn't know this common knowledge. In this world's rules, the regeneration mechanism of devil fruits was an open secret. Of course I know that. You've mastered the technique to strip devil fruits. Law's eyes widened in shock. This technique had never been mentioned in this world before. If Weiss truly possessed it, it would completely overturn the balance of power in the world. I'm 70% sure, this guy isn't lying. Law carefully observed Weiss's expression and eyes. With his years of experience in the pirate world, he detected no signs of deception. This feeling shook him even more deeply. He knew that if what Weiss said was true, the world would be plunged into chaos. It's truly astonishing. Law's face was filled with shock, his voice trembling slightly. Do you know what you'll face if this gets out? Countless terrifying scenarios flashed through his mind. The world government's pursuit, the combined efforts of espers. The entire world engulfed in the smoke of war. Each image sent a chill through his spine. It's just an enemy of this world, Weiss said, gazing at the ocean below. This world doesn't have a foe I can fear. Law stared at Weiss, his mind racing. He couldn't tell if Weiss truly believed he possessed the power to take on the entire world, or if it was simply the arrogance of an ignorant and fearless person. Regardless, he knew he had been drawn into a vortex that could change the fate of the world. Weiss's eyes suddenly shifted, and he turned to look at Law. His gaze was as sharp as a substance, as if he could see through him. This sudden action made Law's heart leap to his throat. He subconsciously clenched his fists, his body tensing slightly, muscles bulging beneath his clothes, like a cheetah ready to pounce. Staring intently at Weiss, countless thoughts raced through his mind, even assuming he was about to attack him. Don Quixote da Flamingo has a grudge against you, right? Weiss's voice broke the tense atmosphere. At the name, Law's body jolted, as if struck by an electric current. He froze, the alertness in his eyes instantly replaced by a fierce murderous aura that emanated from him like a physical substance, tinging the air around him with a chill. How did you know that? Law's voice was low and hoarse, with a subtle tremor. He had never shared his past with anyone except his companions. It was the deepest pain and secret in his heart. The other three also tensed. Pecan and Shaggy unconsciously moved closer to Law, their eyes equally wary, weapons tightly gripped, ready for any possible danger. Beepo let out a low whine in his throat, protesting to Weiss. Weiss, however, seemed oblivious to the tension. He sat calmly on the sofa, legs crossed, his posture relaxed. I'm a wizard, and I know a little divination, he said with a seemingly harmless smile, but Law didn't believe his lies. Law knew the mysterious man before him wouldn't easily reveal how he obtained his information. He tried to find a flaw in Weiss's expression, but Weiss's eyes were as deep as the abyss, impossible to read. Are he and his men all devil fruit users? Weiss continued. Law nodded slightly, his mind picturing Doflamingo's arrogant face and the figures of his men. Great, Weiss's lips curled slightly, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. He chose his first target, the Don Quixote family. Doflamingo was arguably the closest to the power of the four emperors, holding a high status and immense power across the vast ocean. For Weiss, such an opponent was like a touchstone, a good benchmark for measuring the strength of the world. Furthermore, Weiss was very interested in the dwarfs of the Dressrosa kingdom. I'll help you eliminate the Quixote family. In return, how about you become my subordinate? Weiss invited Law. His voice was calm and confident, as if eliminating Doflamingo and his family would be a piece of cake. Chapter 279, Swift and Resolute. Deep within Law, a seed began to sprout and grow. His heart was moved, truly moved. Killing Doflamingo was a long-held wish buried deep within his heart. Every night, when he closed his eyes, Doflamingo's arrogant, evil face would resurface in his mind. Those painful memories overwhelmed him like a surging tide, his soul screaming for revenge. However, he also knew that achieving this goal would be harder than ascending to heaven. Doflamingo's identity was too complex and too powerful. The power he wielded and the influence behind him stood like an insurmountable mountain, standing in Law's way. He was more than just one of the Shichibukai. This status itself meant he was a pirate recognized by the world government, with a right to plunder legally, a formidable presence in the pirate world. More importantly, he was a former celestial dragon, a noble bloodline at the pinnacle of the world. Even though he had left the celestial dragon community, the resources and influence his former status granted him remained formidable. Don Quixote Doflamingo was like a spider, his threads reaching every corner of the world, encompassing both the legal and criminal underworld. Officially, he enjoys the backing of the world government, and with his title as one of the Shichibukai, he can act with a degree of impunity, with the government turning a blind eye to his illegal activities. In the dark world, however, he thrives, controlling vast forces of darkness. He runs an illegal underground human auction house, where countless humans and other creatures are presented as merchandise for the celestial dragons and wealthy nobles to choose from and purchase. In the underground arms trade, Doflamingo commands even greater power. His influence spans the globe, like an invisible web enveloping the entire world. His arms trade involves a wide range of advanced weaponry, from powerful artillery to mysterious sea-stone weapons, providing armed support to countless pirate groups and underworld forces. He is the ruler of the dark world, tilting the scales of war and chaos. Among the Shichibukai, his power is the most powerful. Each of his family members is a formidable force, each possessing unique abilities and skills, working together to safeguard the Don Quixote family's honor and interests. The resistance to overthrowing him would be unimaginable. The world government would certainly not approve. Doflamingo is a crucial counterweight to pirate forces, and losing him could upset the existing balance of power at sea. Furthermore, the Beast's pirates, with whom he conducts business, would not sit idly by. Their interests with Doflamingo are intricately entangled, and if Doflamingo were threatened, the Beast's pirates would inevitably intervene. And what about Law? He was currently a small-time pirate with a mere 40 million bounty. His pirate group consisted of only 4 men, a mere mantis trying to shake a tree compared to Doflamingo's vast power. How could they possibly stand up to such a colossus? This question weighed heavily on Law's mind, like a mountain. Weiss's proposal, like a sharp arrow, pierced through the hardened shell of his heart and struck him straight in the heart. That was the goal he yearned for most deeply, the ultimate driving force that kept him moving forward on this cruel sea. The flames of revenge burned fiercely within his chest, unquenchable, and Weiss's words undoubtedly added fuel to the flames. "Are you really going to attack the Don Quixote family?" Law's voice was a little hoarse, his eyes a mixture of suspicion, desire, and wariness. He didn't just doubt Weiss's ability. After all, Doflamingo's power was obvious to all. He was a demon who swung effortlessly between darkness and light. His power was like a giant python entwined in the world tree, tightening its grip on every corner and creating a terrifying atmosphere. Furthermore, Law doubted Weiss's courage to challenge such a behemoth. On this sea, too many people only talk big, but few actually put their words into action. How about you be a witness? I guess you want to kill Doflamingo yourself. Weiss's lips curled slightly, revealing a confident smile. Knowing Law's inner struggle, and understanding the irresistible allure of this offer, Weiss positioned himself precisely on the opponent's vital points. Weiss knew Law couldn't refuse this offer. Revenge had become a part of his very being, the very meaning of his existence. Given the chance to witness Doflamingo's defeat, or even personally deliver the fatal blow, Law would not pass it up, even if it came with immense risk. As expected, Law accepted without hesitation. His eyes burned with a fiery desire for revenge and anticipation for the coming battle. In that moment, he could already see Doflamingo falling at his feet, all the pain and hatred he had once harbored venting in that moment. His 3 companions didn't try to stop him. Pekin, Shaky, and Beepo exchanged glances, seeing the same determination in each other's eyes. They knew Law's primary purpose in setting sail was revenge, the mission he had always carried. At this crucial moment, their most important role was to stay by his side, to face everything with him. So what are we waiting for? Let's set off for Dressrosa. Weiss's voice was filled with impatience. As Weiss finished speaking, the spaceship suddenly accelerated, streaking through the air with a brilliant golden light, like lightning tearing through the sky. Just 10 minutes later, the spaceship landed steadily on Dressrosa soil. The 4 people and the bear emerged one after another. Is this true? We've arrived in a new world already. Pekin's eyes widened in disbelief. He jumped twice and stomped hard on the ground, wanting to confirm that this was not a dream. It's real, Law nodded slightly, his eyes revealing a complex mix of emotions. He had long ago begun gathering intelligence on Dressrosa, and his knowledge of the place surpassed even some of the locals. The unique architectural style immediately identified it as Dressrosa, a place he had studied for countless days and nights. This was Doflamingo's territory, and now standing there, he felt a mixture of anxiety for the upcoming battle and excitement for the realization of his goal of revenge. Chapter 280 Arrival. In just 10 minutes, they had crossed halfway around the world. This speed and maneuverability were beyond imagination. Luo sighed inwardly. The technological power displayed by this spacecraft far exceeded his comprehension. This was no simple means of transportation. If Weiss chose, with a spacecraft, he could raid any country in a fraction of a second. This power hung like the sword of Damocles over the heads of nations, a terrifying prospect. Let's go, let's experience the land of love, passion, and toys, Weiss said, leading the way. Without any disguise, the group swaggered into the capital. The moment they entered, a rich fragrance of flowers filled their nostrils. It was like a sea of flowers, a dazzling array of blooms, spread across the island. They hung delicately on the flower walls along the streets or clustered in delicate flower beds. The gentle breeze swayed the blossoms, sending forth waves of intoxicating fragrance. This island is world-renowned for its delicious cuisine, with its streets dotted with diverse restaurants and food stalls. The alluring aromas of these delicacies mingle in the air, tantalizing the taste buds. Juicy, tender meats sizzle on the rotating grill, their crusts golden and crispy, emitting a unique charred aroma. Exquisite desserts are works of art, vibrant in color, with delicate cream and luscious fruit perfectly balanced, each bite a delightful explosion of sweetness. Beyond the food and music, the alluring dances of young women are a major draw. Slender women dance to upbeat music in the streets and alleys. Dressed in vibrant colors and bold designs, their every move is captivating, their graceful movements and captivating gazes captivating countless visitors. However, true to its nickname, the Island of Love and Passion, this obsession with love can also breed intense jealousy among its women. Here, love is like a flame burning too fiercely, a single misstep can reduce everything to ash. Women betrayed by their men will unhesitatingly commit horrific acts, even murder. The more beautiful a woman, the more ferocious she is. Their love and hatred erupt like a volcano, their love and hate clearly defined. Consequently, emotional disputes and even physical altercations are common. Take, for example, the scene before Weiss and the others. A beautiful woman with flaming red lips, her lips as vibrant as a blazing flame, her delicate face contorted with anger and sorrow. She clutched a sharp dagger, raised it high, and thrust it fiercely into the blonde man's heart. Puff, the dagger pierced the blonde's chest unhindered, sending blood spurting out like a fountain, splashing onto the surrounding ground in a horrifying display. You said you loved only me, the beautiful woman cried, tears streaming down her cheeks like pearls strung together. Each tear was filled with pain, anger, and despair, the deep pain of betrayal. Blood flowed from the corner of the stabbed man's mouth, his eyes revealing no fear, only relief. He gently caressed the beautiful woman's face, a gentle yet affectionate gesture, as if bidding a final farewell, and then he was gone. This way, you'll be all mine, the woman muttered, her eyes filled with mad love. Without hesitation, she slashed her own neck with a dagger. Blood gushed from her neck, flowing down her fair skin, quickly pooling at her feet. Her body slowly collapsed, embracing the man, unwilling to part until death. Are the people here so crazy? The heart pirates were startled by this sudden scene. Pekin's eyes widened in horror. Shachi's brow furrowed, his eyes filled with shock. He found this extreme expression of emotion difficult to accept. Beepo clung tightly to Luo's legs, his furry body trembling constantly, his round eyes filled with fear. They couldn't imagine how extreme people could be in this country, how love could be so dangerous and insane. This is love, a local from Dressrosa nearby, witnessing the scene, tears welled in his eyes, even flowing. Their faces were filled with reverence, appreciating this tragic love story. Then, he picked up an instrument nearby and began playing a melodious yet sorrowful piece of music. The others around him joined in, dancing to the rhythm of the music, a unique way of commemorating the deceased couple. Their dance was filled with praise for love and lament for the deceased, an expression of their unwavering belief in the supremacy of love, even if it was tainted by bloodshed and madness. Weiss watched all this with a sense of awe. He couldn't understand such extreme emotions and actions, but he could sense the people's devotion to love, A devotion bordering on religious faith? Stay away from the women here, Law said sternly, and the others nodded quickly. They didn't want to be caught up in this whirlpool of crazy emotions. However, it's true that this trend has brought many tourists to Dressrosa, especially many men hoping to find true love in this country. Like ordinary tourists, they strolled through Dressrosa's bustling streets. The streets were lined with a dazzling array of shops, their colorful signs gleaming enchantingly in the sunlight. Is this really okay? Beepo's furry body arched slightly, and he glanced around warily, his large, round eyes filled with caution. His small ears twitched occasionally, picking up any suspicious sounds. "We're in the enemy's lair," he said in a low voice, a subtle tremor in it. Doflamingo's influence spread throughout Dressrosa, and every corner could harbor enemy spies. They were like walking on a tightrope rife with traps, vulnerable at any moment. Law was actually quite nervous, his brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of worry in his eyes. He appeared calm on the surface, but his heart was not at peace. Every passerby, every seemingly casual glance, set his nerves on edge. He knew Doflamingo's methods well. If they were exposed, they would be met with a relentless attack. Chapter 281 Opening. However, seeing Weiss's relaxed expression, Law took a deep breath and silently told himself, "I have no choice but to trust him." He sensed that Weiss wasn't someone who just boasted. His strength and confidence must have some basis. Although Law didn't know what that basis was, at this moment, he was willing to entrust the fate of himself and his companions to Weiss, even if only temporarily. Weiss suddenly seemed to sense something. He looked up, his gaze piercing the east, toward a tall tower. The tower towered into the clouds, its solid brickwork imbued with stone, but to Weiss, it was nothing. His gaze seemed to penetrate the tower, reaching its summit. Violet, watching from the tower, took 2 steps back in shock. The color drained from her beautiful face, her eyes filled with fear. "What's wrong?" Gladius asked, frowning beside him. "Does he seem to have noticed me?" Violet's voice trembled, unsure. As a user of the psychic-type stare fruit, she had always been confident in her abilities. With the power of this fruit, she could extend her vision to a radius of 4,000 kilometers, allowing her to gather intelligence and observe enemies. In countless previous missions, she had never failed. Her eyes, like an all-seeing eye, silently observed every move across Dressrosa, gathering intelligence for the Doflamingo family. Whether it was a secret base hidden in the mountains or a ship sailing on the vast ocean, nothing escaped her gaze. But this time, facing Weiss's piercing gaze, she felt an unprecedented fear, an uneasy feeling of being seen through. "Are you mistaken?" Gladius said with some disbelief, unconvinced. He didn't believe anyone could detect Violet's surveillance. "Are you 2 members of the Don Quixote family?" A calm, deep voice came from behind him, like the whisper of death, sending chills down Gladius's spines. His body stiffened, and an unprecedented sense of crisis washed over him. Almost instinctively, he spun with incredible speed. When his gaze fell behind him, his pupils constricted sharply. Weiss stood quietly less than 3 meters behind them, when a turbulent wave surged through Gladius's heart. With his observation hacky, and aided by Violet's ability, they should have been able to control everything around them. Yet, until Weiss spoke, he had been completely unaware of her presence. It felt like prey caught unawares by the hunter's gun, the shadow of death instantly enveloping him. An invisible pressure washed over him like a surging tide, so heavy it almost choked him, as if the very air itself had become thick. Gladius was a seasoned warrior, his instincts honed through countless life-or-death battles. Now, these instincts were frantically warning him that he was no match for Weiss. Escape. This was the only thought that crossed his mind. Almost instantly, he activated his ability. The ground began to tremble violently, and then a large, growing bump rose up. Boom! With a resounding roar, the immense force of the explosion shattered the tower's top floor. Bricks and wood flew everywhere, smoke and dust filled the air, and the entire tower shook violently. Gladius seized the opportunity to grab the still shocked Violet and leaped from the tower without hesitation. With exquisite control of his body, he adjusted his posture and landed smoothly on the ground. Go! Gladius didn't hesitate after landing. He knew there was no time to stop, he had to get away from this terrifying enemy as quickly as possible. He pulled Violet along and ran towards the family's stronghold. Right decision, but then, Weiss's ghostly voice echoed in their ears. Then, to their horror, they found themselves suddenly unable to move, as if bound by countless invisible ropes. Every muscle seemed frozen, unable to even move a finger. What's going on? Is this guy also a Esper? Gladius's mind raced through this intense situation, trying to determine what kind of Esper Weiss was. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. Among the devil fruit users he knew, he had never seen such a bizarre ability. But the next second, he felt a powerful force surge through his consciousness, a force like a surging black tide, instantly drowning his awareness. His eyes became blank, his body swayed twice, and then, with a plop, he collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud, lifeless. Weiss stared at Gladius's body, his eyes devoid of any pity. He knew this was just the beginning, he was waiting for something to appear. A few seconds later, he saw something emerge from Gladius's body. This was the moment Weiss had been waiting for. He shouted, "In prison!" As he spoke, a cube-shaped barrier emitting a pale blue light instantly appeared, trapping the energy. This energy surged wildly within the barrier, each impact sending ripples and a violent explosion. Weiss's barrier was incredibly strong, and no matter how hard the energy struggled, it couldn't break through. Weiss reached out and gently grasped the cube, his eyes filled with curiosity. Is this the true form of the devil fruit? He was already thinking about studying it carefully, exploring the power and secrets it held. Beside him, Violet was terrified, her body trembling, her face pale as a sheet. She watched the powerful Gladius die so silently, and she couldn't even discern the method Weiss had used. This filled Violet with a deep sense of despair and fear, wondering if she would be the next to fall. The explosion had alerted a nearby patrol. The patrol, composed of pirates under Don Quixote, heard the blast and quickly rushed to the scene. When they saw Gladius lying lifeless on the ground, their hearts felt like they were being gripped by an invisible hand. Gladius held a high position in the Don Quixote family, his strength and abilities well known to all, yet now he lay there like a broken puppet, lifeless. These pirates knew clearly that something serious was going to happen. Chapter 282 Arrival. Notify the officers immediately, a pirate shouted in panic. The other pirates, waking from their dreams, sprang into action. Some dashed towards the clan's base, while others pulled out their den-den-mushi to spread the terrifying news. After the explosion, the Don Quixote clan rushed to the scene like a hornet's nest. First to arrive were Baby 5 and Buffalo, both members of the Special Attack Force. Buffalo hovered in midair, carrying Baby 5. Gradius has been killed, Baby 5's brow furrowed, a flicker of fear and anger in her eyes. She clutched the den-den-mushi tightly in her hand and quickly reported the situation to Doflamingo. Fufufu Doflamingo's signature laugh echoed from the den-den-mushi, his uncontrollable murderous intent evident in its chuckle. The murderous aura seemed to materialize, emanating from the den-den-mushi, turning the surrounding air icy cold. Veins popped out on the den-den-mushi's forehead. Doflamingo flung open the window, and the wind howled in, rustling his pink coat. His tall figure stood by the window for a moment, his eyes blazing with fury, then he leaped out. Like a swift bird, he streaked toward the scene, leaving only a pink afterimage. Young master will be there shortly. Hearing the busy tone, Baby 5 sheathed the den-den-mushi. Her right hand transformed into a massive cannon barrel, its sights gleaming with a cold metallic sheen. She aimed it at Weiss. I'll teach you the consequences of harming our family. Bang, 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 bang. Several shells blasted from the air towards Weiss, piercing the air with a sharp whistling sound. Just as the shells were about to strike Weiss, a blue curtain of light suddenly appeared, enveloping her. That was Law's ability. With a single swing of his blade, the light curtain shell was neatly cut in two. The shell exploded in midair, showering him with dazzling sparks. Law arrived and, gazing at Baby 5 and Buffalo in the air, a wave of mixed emotions welled up within him. Back in his time with the Don Quixote family, he'd interacted most closely with Baby 5 and Buffalo, both of whom were roughly his age. They'd trained together, carried out missions together, days filled with laughter and sweat. Therefore, he knew their abilities best. Law. It's you, Baby 5 shouted from the air, her voice filled with anger and surprise. The Don Quixote family had been relentlessly searching for Law's whereabouts. Ever since the first bounty on Law was placed, Doflamingo had been watching his every move like a beast scenting prey. Upon discovering Law's presence in Dressrosa, Doflamingo immediately dispatched Violet and Gladius to monitor him. He thought everything was under control, but to his surprise, Gladius was dispatched so easily, a clear provocation to the Don Quixote family. Fufufu at that moment, a familiar, Chilling laugh echoed from behind him. Almost instinctively, Law spun, his sword slashing with a sharp, whistling sound. The blade sliced through the air, emitting a sharp whistling sound as it slashed towards the source of the laughter. Dang, however, Doflamingo caught Law's blade with his bare hands. His grip was as strong as steel, tightly gripping the blade. The overwhelming force prevented Law from advancing even a fraction. Doflamingo's lips curled up slightly, a scornful smile playing. You haven't even mastered armament haki, so who gave you the guts to come to the new world? His voice was low and cold. Each word like a sharp dagger piercing Law's heart. His piercing gaze didn't reach Law, but instead remained fixed on Weiss, filled with scrutiny and disdain. Is it this alien? You really underestimate me. By this moment, nearly all members of the Don Quixote family had arrived, surrounding Weiss and Law. Each of them looked ferocious, their eyes gleaming with murderous intent. Diamante, Pica, Lao Ji, Law looked at the familiar faces around him, a wave of despair welling up in his heart. These people had been the protagonists of his childhood nightmares, their cruelty and power leaving a deep shadow on Law's young mind. A cold sweat streamed down Law's face, beads of sweat trickling down his cheeks and dripping onto the ground. Although he had prepared himself mentally beforehand, facing these people made him acutely aware of his own weakness. He could clearly sense the sharp, murderous aura emanating from them, pressing down upon him like a physical substance, nearly suffocating him. Luo bore the lion's share of this killing intent, his legs trembling slightly as he retreated uncontrollably. Was I too impulsive? I'm still so weak now, he silently blamed himself, regretting his hasty decision to agree to Weiss's offer. Just as Luo felt himself about to be completely consumed by the murderous aura, Weiss placed a hand on his shoulder. Suddenly, Luo felt a warm, powerful force emanating from Weiss's hand, like a solid shield, shielding him from the suffocating murderous aura. Supported by this strength, Luo felt a slight improvement. He glanced at Weiss gratefully, his fear slightly lessened. It seems everyone isn't here yet. Weiss frowned slightly, his gaze sweeping over the Don Quixote family, silently calculating. Torrable, Sugar, Monet, and Vergo were still missing. You can go find them after we've finished sorting things out. Weiss's lips curled up slightly, a confident smile forming. Weiss slowly opened his right hand, a strange glow emanating from his palm. A transparent cube gradually emerged, spinning, rapidly expanding as it did so. The transparent boundary, as if alive, spread outward, enveloping several nearby streets. The once bustling streets, the bustling crowds, the shops and buildings along the street, were all engulfed by this massive barrier. What is this? The Don Quixote family members stared in astonishment, their eyes filled with wariness and confusion as they gazed at the suddenly appearing barrier. Is this guy also a Esper? Baby Five's eyes widened, her movements, about to resume her attack, faltering slightly. After a brief moment of surprise, she raised her right hand, transformed into a cannon barrel, again. Bang! 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 However, the moment the cannonballs made contact with the barrier, they disintegrated like ice and snow encountering the scorching sun, dispersing into the air without even a scratch. We're trapped. Only then did the Don Quixote family finally react. They realized that Weiss had never been the passive combatant they'd assumed, but had viewed them as prey. This reversal of status stirred a surge of anger in them. They had always roamed the seas as hunters, never imagining that one day they would become prey. Chapter 283 Stone Fruit. Upon hearing that Weiss actually considered them prey, Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, then clutched his hand to his forehead and let out a frantic laugh. His laughter was a mixture of madness and anger. Treating us as prey? That's not funny at all. His voice suddenly rose, his eyes gleaming with ferocity. He looked like a dragon whose scales had been touched, ready to open its bloody maw and tear the offender to shreds. Doflamingo's fingers swiftly formed claws, each of which produced a thin, nearly transparent thread. These threads appeared thin and fragile, but were in fact incredibly strong. In the sunlight, they shimmered with a dangerous luster. In an instant, they swiftly grabbed Weiss. Five-colored thread, the thread sliced through the air with a soft hissing sound, and in the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Weiss. Meanwhile, Diamante was also busy. He gripped the hilt of his sword with both hands and swung it fiercely. The sword energy, like a materialized crescent moon, radiated a cold, powerful impact, whistling towards Weiss. Wherever the sword energy passed, visible waves of air surged towards Weiss. Facing the sudden and fierce attacks, Weiss remained unfazed. A golden, eggshell-shaped protective shield appeared out of thin air, firmly enveloping Weiss and Law. The shield appeared thin as an eggshell, yet in reality, it was indestructible. The moment Doflamingo's five-colored thread and Diamante's half-moon funeral attack struck the shield, they were repelled like waves crashing against a solid reef. The five-colored thread was scattering in all directions, dancing wildly in the air. The half-moon sword energy also flew back at an even faster speed, shooting towards Diamante, causing him to quickly duck to the side. "You're quite capable," Doflamingo frowned at the sight, the disdain in his eyes instantly vanishing, replaced by a solemn expression. Doflamingo launched another attack. He suddenly raised his right foot, and it was instantly covered in a thick layer of armament haki. The armament haki, like a solid black armor, adhered tightly to his leg. The kick contained immense power, enough to split an ordinary building in two, instantly reducing it to rubble. Ashishaline, he then launched a fierce kick at the golden shield. With a loud bang, the kick landed firmly on the shield. However, surprisingly, the shield didn't even ripple, still radiating a steady golden glow. Doflamingo's incredibly powerful kick was like an ant trying to shake a tree, causing no real impact. And what surprised Doflamingo even more was, it stuck. He tried to pull his foot back, but found it was firmly attached to the shield by a powerful suction force. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't budge an inch. "You came here on your own, saving me the trouble," Weiss said, a faint smile rising from his lips. He slowly reached out his hand and grabbed towards Doflamingo's heart. Damn it, Doflamingo was shocked and furious, his face darkening. He desperately tried to pull his right leg back, every muscle tensing with the effort, veins popping out on his forehead. But no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free from the sticky force. "What kind of power is this? Stop looking down on me." Doflamingo's eyes were red, veins popping out on his forehead, his already fierce expression now contorted and distorted with rage. He could clearly sense Weiss's undisguised contempt for him, as if in Weiss's eyes, he was nothing more than an ant to be manipulated at will. How could the proud Doflamingo tolerate this? Kaz suddenly, strange red and black lightning emanated from Doflamingo's body. Like a savage dragon, the lightning danced wildly around him, accompanied by bursts of crackling sounds, as if venting Doflamingo's raging rage. Simultaneously, a powerful and unparalleled domineering aura erupted from his body. Like a surging tsunami, the domineering aura swept outward from Doflamingo. Wherever it passed, the air seemed to be distorted by the overwhelming force, and ripples seemed to spread throughout the space. Law bore the brunt of the attack, feeling as if he'd been struck hard on the head with a club. A sharp pain washed over him, followed by a drowsy feeling. His consciousness began to blur, and his steps stumbled involuntarily, as if the world were spinning. Weiss felt a legendary domineering haki attack for the first time. However, the domineering haki Doflamingo unleashed had no real effect on Weiss. Weiss merely narrowed her eyes slightly, her body remaining steady, unmoving. However, she secretly thought to herself that this mental attack was quite intriguing. It struck with such force, like a sharp blade piercing the heart, and with such domineering power, as if everything in the world were to submit to its pressure. It also carried a sense of raw, primal power, but it was undoubtedly effective, instantly throwing the opponent into confusion and weakness. Conqueror's haki? That's interesting. Weiss's lips curled up slightly, his eyes gleaming with interest. He had an idea, to capture Doflamingo alive and study the true nature of Conqueror's haki. Perhaps he could even glean something useful from it. Just then, a shrill female voice suddenly rang out, "Let go of the young master." Surprisingly, it came from the tiny giant, Pika. Pika activated his stone fruit power, and instantly, his body began to merge with the ground. As the fusion deepened, the ground began to violently tremble, and rocks tumbled. Then, a giant over 100 meters tall slowly rose from the ground, its massive form obscuring the sky and casting a vast shadow. It raised its massive fist, the size of a house, and with overwhelming force, it smashed down on Weiss. If this punch landed solidly, it would probably be enough to raise a hill to the ground. Pika used all his strength in his attack. After all, Gladius was his direct subordinate. Now that Gladius was killed so easily by Weiss, the anger in Pika's heart burned to the extreme. He vowed to make Weiss pay a heavy price. However, facing this fierce attack, Weiss was not in a hurry. He only uttered 2 words from his mouth, "Crush." In the blink of an eye, the giant, hundreds of meters tall, was like a fragile sand sculpture, instantly shattered into tiny particles of dust by an invisible force. The dust shimmered faintly in the sunlight and fell down in a flutter, like a strange sandstorm. Not only that, but Pika's body also did not escape the fate of being shattered. Pika, who had originally merged with the ground, was swept by the powerful force before he could react. He was also shattered into countless tiny particles and dissipated into the air. Seeing this, Weiss did the same. A barrier emitting a light blue light instantly appeared, trapping the stone fruit that had just been separated from Pika's body. The stone fruit was firmly imprisoned inside, preventing it from escaping, and was recovered. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Awakening. A top official, Pika, had simply perished before everyone's eyes. In an instant, he was shattered into tiny particles of dust, dissipating into the air as if he had never existed. The members of the Don Quixote family, witnessing the scene, were all in disbelief. Their eyes widened in shock and terror, their mouths gaping as if they could fit a fist, yet they remained speechless for a long time. Even Law was no different. Although he had long known Weiss was formidable, he had never imagined her to be so formidable. In his eyes, Weiss was like a bottomless black hole. No matter how he tried to gauge her, he could never fathom the limits of her true strength. Asshole, Doflamingo's eyes widened, bloodshot like spiderwebs, and a deep, swollen chuan, a character for, appeared on his forehead, etched with rage. He felt as if a raging fire burned within his chest, scorching his very being, leaving him on the brink of exploding. At this moment, his mind was devoid of all other thoughts except one, to kill Weiss at all costs, to completely eliminate this man who had dared to act so arrogantly on his territory and in front of his family. From his feet, a speck of white slowly spread outward like ripples. It must be said that Doflamingo was truly a man of extraordinary talent. The string fruit, originally a common devil fruit among many, its abilities seemingly unremarkable. However, through his extraordinary talent and unwavering pursuit of power, Doflamingo had developed it into a multitude of powerful abilities. From its razor-sharp attacks, capable of slicing through enemies like a blade, to its agile and versatile movements, even capable of walking in midair, to its ability to heal itself with the aid of silk threads when injured, it could be said that his development of the string fruit had reached a truly comprehensive level. Now, he had even developed the string fruit to its fullest potential. Everything around him, including the tall, sturdy buildings, was transformed into transparent threads under his power. Weiss felt as if he were immersed in a strange white ocean, surrounded by a dense, crisscrossing web of transparent threads. In the sunlight, these threads resembled countless silver snakes hidden in the shadows. Weiss gently lifted a transparent thread and placed it on his fingertips, testing its sharpness. The thread sliced through a nearby rock with the effortless ease of a hot knife through butter. The rock instantly split in two, its cut smooth and even. That's interesting, Weiss's eyes gleamed with excitement, his lips curling slightly. He was deeply intrigued by Doflamingo's awakened power and wanted to experience it for himself. So, he narrowed the shield to cover only Law, intending to personally experience the full extent of this awakened power. A subtle flicker of surprise flashed in Doflamingo's eyes. He jerked his right leg back, its previously entangled leg finally free. You've been completely underestimated. I wonder how long you can hold your arrogance, Doflamingo roared through gritted teeth, his voice thick with resentment and anger. He leaned forward slightly, ready to strike with all his might, like a cheetah poised to pounce on its prey. Then, Doflamingo launched his attack. Wild waves, white lines, instantly, tens of thousands of thin, transparent white lines rapidly formed horizontally, like soldiers receiving an order. These lines, neatly aligned and tightly connected, formed a surging wave. They surged up from beneath Weiss, their momentum like a galloping horse, like a surging tide crashing against a dam. As the white lines surged, they rubbed against each other, making a soft rustling sound that merged into a roaring sound like surging waves. Weiss's body, like a feather, was involuntarily lifted upward by the overwhelming force. His clothes rustled in the wind, his hair flying everywhere, but his eyes remained unfazed. Doflamingo stamped his foot, his body moving like lightning on the crisscrossing silk threads, using the force to launch himself into the air. His movements were swift and agile, and the threads beneath his feet seemed to transform into stairways leading to the sky, catapulting him swiftly into the heavens. Fierce sapphire, black flames surged like from the depths of hell, filling the sky with a surging force. Like a torrential downpour, dense tongues of flame roared towards Weiss, tinting the sky an eerie black. Shield, white threads. Doflamingo showed no fear. Countless transparent threads burst forth from his fingertips, swiftly combining to form a massive shield, attempting to block the torrential downpour of black fiery flames. However, the seemingly sturdy silk shield, upon contact with the black flames, was as fragile as paper, consumed by the blazing flames in less than a second. The flames devoured the silk thread mercilessly, transforming it into wisps of smoke that dissipated into the air. This is no ordinary flame. Doflamingo was startled, his eyes, already red with anger, now flashing with a solemnity. With a gentle tug of his index finger, his body nimbly pivoted in midair, instantly changing direction and avoiding the fiercest of the flames. However, his every move was under Weiss's control. That's all? A devil fruit awakening is nothing more than this. Weiss's words were like sharp arrows, piercing Doflamingo's pride. Fufufu. Doflamingo suddenly burst into a frenzied laugh. His 10 fingers moved incessantly in the air like a nimble dancer, weaving intricate gestures at breakneck speed. Unable to tolerate such underestimation, Doflamingo had only one thought in mind, to make Weiss pay a heavy price. He unleashed his ultimate move, 16 holy bullets, divine slaying. 16 massive white lines, densely woven with armament haki, rose from the ground and pierced Weiss at breakneck speed. Chapter 285 Celestial Dragons. This was Doflamingo's all-consuming, fatal strike. Like a swarm of unbridled meteors, they whistled towards Weiss. They streaked through the air, their immense force squeezing the very space in their path, causing it to wail in agony, as if the entire world were trembling at the terrifying attack. Weiss, however, stood calmly in midair, her expression relaxed. He slowly extended his index finger, its presence abrupt amidst the pervasive threat, yet somehow imbued it with an undeniable sense of power. Fufufu. You're too careless, Doflamingo observed, a sinister grin spreading across his face. He was absolutely confident in this move, believing even the 4 emperors would have to approach it with caution. He could already picture Weiss being pierced through by those 16 holy bullets, divine slaying. The image of blood splattering and body shattering recurred in his mind, filling him with a sense of exhilaration. However, what followed caused Doflamingo's eyes to widen in disbelief. Weiss's index finger gently touched the death scythe-like threads, but there was no violent collision he'd imagined, no deafening roar, no powerful energy explosion. Instead, a sky filled with petals danced. Under Weiss's magic, the threads transformed into countless vibrant petals. These petals shimmered in a dazzling array of colors, vibrant red, refreshing blue, warm and soft pink, and a vibrant green. They shimmered captivatingly in the sunlight. Suddenly, a rain of petals fell from the sky. The petals fluttered down like a fairy's shower of floral dew. They drifted gently through the air, swirling and dancing, each petal a vibrant note, creating a magnificent melody. The battlefield transformed into a dreamlike fairy tale world, brimming with romance. However, if one could ignore Doflamingo's utterly awful expression, this scene would be the most beautiful painting in the world. Doflamingo's face was livid, his eyes blazing with rage. He couldn't accept the fact that his ultimate move had been so easily neutralized. What else do you have up your sleeve? Weiss's tone was thick with amusement, like a spectator in the audience, treating Doflamingo like a clown in a circus. The slight upturn in his lips, the undisguised contempt in his eyes, were like sharp blades, piercing Doflamingo's proud heart. Seeing Doflamingo's face turn awful at the loss of his ultimate move, Weiss continued to taunt, "Looks like there's nothing left. Let's end it." Weiss muttered the incantation, word magic confinement. A golden cube-shaped barrier appeared around each member of the Don Quixote family. These barriers shone with a dazzling golden light, each surface appearing to be crafted from the strongest gold, with mysterious runes faintly flowing across them. Collect. The barrier began to rapidly shrink. As the barrier contracted, the members of the Don Quixote family were trapped in the shrinking space, like prey caught by a hunter. As reckless pirates, they wouldn't sit idly by and wait for death. They launched a desperate resistance. Some tried to use their fruit powers to break the barrier, but it remained unmoved. They pounded against it with their forged bodies, each impact producing a dull thud, yet the barrier remained unbreakable. Some unleashed swift swordplay, their blades clashing with the barrier, sending sparks flying, yet the barrier showed no sign of breaking. Some even unleashed a powerful burst of domineering aura, attempting to use this invisible force to break through the barrier's constraints. However, no matter how hard they tried, it was all in vain. Even the powerful Doflamingo, under the influence of the barrier, plummeted from the sky, his once majestic presence vanishing. "Young master," the Don Quixote family cried out in terror, their eyes filled with panic. Law watched silently from the sidelines. He had never seen this crowd so panicked. A sense of despair, as if the sky were falling, enveloped each of them. Weiss slowly descended to the ground, his gaze sweeping over the trapped people one by one, like a farmer observing a field of rice ripe for harvest. "A good harvest," Weiss muttered to himself, examining Doflamingo with impunity, as if assessing a piece of merchandise. "Very good, no damage." His gaze roamed over Doflamingo's body, a gaze that filled Doflamingo with utter humiliation, as if he were merely a dishonorable object. "Asshole!" Doflamingo, a former celestial dragon, roared. With his noble status and proud pride, how could he tolerate such a gaze, like that of an animal? He unleashed his conqueror's haki once again with all his might. Red and black lightning raged around him, and the conqueror's haki surged in all directions like a raging tsunami. However, Weiss remained unaffected, his expression remaining calm. "Be a good test subject, and behave yourself," Weiss said, casting a stunning spell on Doflamingo. A faint light emanated from Weiss's fingertips, flying towards Doflamingo. Doflamingo sensed the danger and concentrated his mind to resist, surprisingly withstanding the stunning spell. "Huh? High mental resistance? Is it because of the awakening of Conqueror's haki?" Weiss frowned slightly, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes as he began to analyze. He was intrigued by Doflamingo's ability to resist the stunning spell, and had discovered a new research topic. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. You all have research value." Weiss's words clearly did not reassure the members of the Quixote family, but instead intensified their anger and panic. "Asshole, do you know who the young master is?" Diamante yelled at the top of his lungs, attempting to intimidate Weiss by citing Doflamingo's identity. The young master is a celestial dragon. In his view, the identity of a celestial dragon was incomparably noble, a symbol of power and status in this world, one that no one dared to offend lightly. Weiss, however, shrugged it off. His eyes held no trace of fear as he calmly observed the group struggling within the barrier. Celestial dragon, so what? Chapter 286 Chaos begins. Weiss's reaction, as calm as a pool of stagnant water, was like a ruthless blade, piercing the hearts of the Don Quixote family. Their hearts, which had once held on to a glimmer of hope, instantly plunged into an abyss, tumbling to the bottom of the abyss. Their eyes widened, their faces filled with fear and despair. They had thought that by using the celestial dragons as their trump card, Weiss would be intimidated, even if only for a moment of hesitation. However, Weiss's impassive eyes and cold expression were like a bucket of cold water, completely extinguishing their last hopes. "It seems a few people are missing." Weiss frowned slightly. "That's right, Virgo and Triple aren't here," Luo quickly replied. "Luo, you traitor," Baby 5, as if suddenly finding an outlet for her emotions, unleashed a barrage of curses at Luo. "It's all because of you, you damned one, that the family is in this predicament." Luo didn't reply. He stood there blankly, like a puppet without a soul. He was still dazed, his mind a turmoil. The mighty Don Quixote family, once a force that commanded the seas and inspired fear in countless people, was crumbling before his eyes. He felt as if he were in a bizarre dream, everything around him surreal. The once mighty family members were now trapped and struggling within the barrier, while he himself was caught in the center of this sudden storm. The stark contrast was hard for him to accept. Finding the whereabouts of the remaining cotters was simple. A strange light shot out from his palm, shooting straight at Diamante. Like sharp probes, the light instantly penetrated Diamante's mind. Weiss began to brutally extract Diamante's memories, like a brutal predator, with no regard for Diamante's feelings. Diamante screamed in agony, the sound so piercing that it sounded like the most brutal torture in the world. His body trembled violently within the barrier, beads of sweat dripping from his forehead. Weiss naturally had her reasons for not searching Doflamingo's memories. Doflamingo had awakened Conqueror's haki, a rare find in the world and a valuable experimental subject. Weiss didn't want to accidentally damage the brain of this precious research subject through her reckless actions, that would be a loss. After finding out the whereabouts of several people, Weiss waved her hands and opened a space tunnel in the air. With the sound of heavy footsteps, Black Dwarf slowly emerged from the space tunnel. His tall and powerful frame was like a small mountain, and every step he took caused the ground to tremble slightly. "Take them back and keep them under guard," Weiss commanded. Upon hearing the order, Black Dwarf and his people sprang into action. They dragged them roughly, like helpless animals. Doflamingo and the others were filled with anger and resentment. They were escorted by Black Dwarf and his men toward the space tunnel, their backs looking incredibly shabby. Are they aliens too? Where did they come from? Where are they going? After Black Dwarf left the tunnel, Luo, seemingly snapping out of his trance, asked with a puzzled expression. Want to know the answer? Weiss looked at Luo with a half-smile. Luo quickly shook his head, knowing that some secrets couldn't be touched, especially when facing someone as unfathomable as Weiss. I'm being presumptuous. Luo lowered his head. Weiss ignored Luo, his body slowly floating upward. Torrable and Sugar had slipped through the net, and he had to catch them before they could escape. He transformed into a streak of light. Inside the Smile Factory, Torrable was pacing anxiously, his long snot dangling from his nose, threatening to drip to the ground. Stop moving around. My eyes are blurry, Sugar, who was leisurely eating grapes nearby, said impatiently. Her brow furrowed, her eyes filled with annoyance, annoyed at Torrable's panic. She believed that with Flamingo around, there shouldn't be any major problems, so she couldn't understand Torrable's anxiety. I have a bad feeling, Torrable muttered as he continued to pace. His voice was tinged with unease, and his snot-covered face was even more contorted with worry. HMPH, with the young master here, what could possibly happen? Sugar snorted disdainfully. Before she could finish her words, there was a sudden, loud boom, and the factory gate was shattered by a powerful force, sending sawdust and dust flying everywhere. Weiss calmly broke through the gate and walked in, instantly locking onto the two people inside. Sure enough, Weiss said coldly. Without further ado, he waved his hand and quickly cast a barrier around them, trapping Torrable and Sugar tightly within. Who are you? Torrable cried out in terror, trying to ram the barrier with his slimy body, but every impact was in vain. Sugar's face was filled with horror, her eyes wide with fear of the unknown. However, before they could make another move, Weiss cast a spell, instantly knocking them both unconscious. As Sugar passed out, a miraculous scene occurred. The Marines, pirates, world government spies, and members of the Revolutionary Army she had transformed into toys all returned to their original forms. Their previously empty eyes gradually brightened, at first with bewilderment, then with ecstasy. For a moment, Dressrosa became bustling with activity. Doflamingo, that bastard, dared to enslave us, someone roared in anger, their voice filled with hatred for Doflamingo. The suppressed rage erupted like a volcano, and the entire city was engulfed in chaos. Some of the more rational individuals, upon regaining their memories, immediately contacted their superiors, knowing that such a situation must be reported immediately so that appropriate measures could be taken. Some, unable to contain their rage, attacked members of the Don Quixote family, targeting both ordinary members and members of the Don Quixote family they encountered. Doflamingo, get out here! Someone stood in the middle of the street, brandishing weapons and shouting in fury, the sound echoing through the city. After venting their anger, they were surprised to find not a single Don Quixote family official had appeared. The Don Quixote family has been wiped out, someone exclaimed. No wonder their abilities have been removed, another echoed. Now that we're free, let's cause a scene, a pirate shouted excitedly, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Ha ha ha, the pirates enslaved by the Don Quixote family responded in kind, venting their fury wildly across the city, smashing and destroying everything related to the Don Quixote family. The entire city of Dressrosa was plunged into chaos, and the pent-up anger and hatred that had once been suppressed erupted completely. Chapter 287 Restoration. Elsewhere in Dressrosa, others gradually noticed something was amiss, especially the passionate gladiators in the arena. At that moment, the clamor of fighting outside the arena captured their attention like a magnet. Where do all these pirates come from? A burly gladiator asked, frowning in confusion. He clutched a greatsword, his broad shoulders and sturdy arms bulging with muscle, demonstrating his immense strength. Why bother? We're all here to fight, isn't this more exciting? Another gladiator exclaimed, his face brimming with excitement, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. And there's a wanted criminal inside. Yet another gladiator's eyes lit up, licking his lips greedily. To these gladiators, wanted criminals held a lucrative bounty and immense honor, far more alluring than simply fighting in the arena. Before he'd finished his words, the gladiators, like unbridled horses, burst out of the arena, their eyes ablaze, and dashed towards the pirates. As they ran, they kicked up clouds of dust, shouting loudly, their momentum threatening to tear the pirates to shreds. In a corner of the arena, a white-haired swordsman stood aside from the others. He gazed blankly at the chaotic scene outside, his eyes filled with confusion. "What the hell just happened?" he muttered, the wrinkles on his weathered face deepening, each one shrouded in a myriad of questions. Just then, a one-legged, cape man rushed in like a gust of wind. Though his figure was slightly disheveled, his resolute gaze was like a blazing torch. Upon catching sight of the white-haired swordsman, his entire body trembled with excitement, tears welling in his eyes. He couldn't help but shout, "Your Excellency King Riku, you are?" Cyrus. King Riku was stunned for a moment, but then a flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. A glimmer of clarity finally returned to his previously bewildered gaze. He finally remembered the man before him, his son-in-law. "It's me." Cyrus trembled slightly with excitement. "What on earth has happened?" King Riku hurriedly helped Cyrus to his feet, anxiously asking. His heart was filled with worry about the situation outside and fear of the unknown. Since becoming a toy soldier, Cyrus had been secretly rebelling against the Don Quixote family. With his tenacious will and longing for his family, he never gave up his pursuit of freedom. He had been outside the barrier during the battle between Weiss and Doflamingo, and he witnessed the entire battle clearly. As he watched the Don Quixote family members being captured one by one, the long-suppressed emotions within him could no longer be suppressed. Now that he had returned to his true form, he could no longer contain himself and immediately sought out his father-in-law, King Riku. He wanted to tell King Riku the good news, to let him know that the shadow of doom hanging over Dressrosa was about to lift. "The Don Quixote family is completely destroyed." King Riku's eyes widened in disbelief. His lips trembled slightly, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. "Absolutely." Cyrus nodded vigorously, his resolute gaze letting King Riku know this was no joke. He knew Cyrus was an upright and honest man who wouldn't lie to him. "That's wonderful indeed," King Riku cried with emotion. Tears streamed down his wrinkled cheeks and dripped onto the ground. For years, he had lived in regret, becoming a gladiator to atone for his sins. Hearing this news now was like seeing the dawn for someone long imprisoned in darkness. The joy and relief in his heart was like a flood that could no longer be contained. Now is the perfect time to reclaim this country. Cyrus looked at King Riku with a burning gaze, a resolute glint in his eyes. He knew that after this tragedy, the fall of the Don Quixote family had brought a glimmer of hope to Dressrosa, and King Riku, once a beloved monarch, was the key to leading the restoration of order. King Riku slowly shook his head, his eyes filled with pain and self-blame. "I am no longer king." His voice was low and hoarse, as if every word was laden with endless regret. The scenes of the past resurfaced in his mind like a nightmare. It was he who, under Doflamingo's machinations, had betrayed the people's expectations and surrendered the nation's sovereignty. Back then, he had been so foolish and gullible that he had plunged the entire nation into dire straits. "This isn't your fault. Doflamingo deceived you," Cyrus said urgently. He stepped forward and gripped King Riku's shoulders tightly, trying to pull him out of his deep self-blame. "You've always had the best interests of this country and its people in mind. It was Doflamingo who was so cunning. He deceived everyone with his schemes." Cyrus' eyes were filled with indignation, and he felt immense hatred for Doflamingo's evil deeds. But no matter how earnestly Cyrus pleaded, King Riku remained unmoved. He was like an island trapped in self-punishment, lost in the remorse of his past mistakes. He closed his eyes slightly, as if trying to shut out the outside world. The wrinkles on his face seemed to deepen, each one a mark of regret carved by time. The situation outside is chaotic. Pirates, navy, and unidentified individuals are fighting recklessly. The people need your protection. Cyrus raised his voice, trying to impress the urgency of the situation on King Riku. Outside, shouts and explosions rang out. The entire city trembled in the chaos, and the people fled in fear. Without a strong leader, the country would be plunged into even greater disaster. At this moment, the former Tegerpin suddenly appeared. He stood tall and straight, and although his face was marked by the years, his eyes remained as resolute as ever. "King Riku, this country needs you now," he shouted. Behind him, a group of soldiers followed, their gaze as resolute. They stood in neat rows, their weapons gleaming coldly in the sunlight, as if silently expressing their resolve. "What are you doing?" King Riku looked at them in surprise, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "We never doubted you." "What happened back then was so strange," Tigurban said, stepping forward. His eyes were filled with trust in King Riku, a loyalty that had stood the test of time and remained unwavering. "We know you were framed. We've been waiting for this day, for you to lead us again and restore this country to its former prosperity." The soldiers behind him nodded, their eyes filled with anticipation. King Riku is their guiding light in the darkness, their nation's last hope. Chapter 288 Drumtada Tribe. Dressrosa was plunged into unprecedented chaos, the entire city transformed into a living hell. Fierce battles erupted in the streets and alleys, the cries of blood, the shouts of murder, the clash of weapons blending into a symphony of death and destruction. Pirates and criminals, taking advantage of the situation, ran rampant through the city like sharks scenting blood. They stormed homes, looted property, and unhesitatingly slaughtered anyone who resisted. Some went even further, burning and plundering with utter ferocity. Flames raged through the houses, and thick smoke obscured the sky. Innocent civilians fled in terror, finding nowhere to escape. The entire city was gripped by fear and despair. These horrific scenes, like sharp blades, pierced King Riku's heart. Pain and remorse etched across his weathered face, tears of grief and indignation gleaming in his eyes. As the former king of this nation, he held a deep love for this land and its people. Seeing his people suffer so much, his heart burned like a raging fire. King Riku, his subordinates called out anxiously, their eyes filled with hope and persuasion. They knew that in this chaotic situation, King Riku was the only one who could stabilize the people and stop this disaster. After his subordinates' earnest entreaties, King Riku finally raised his head, a glimmer of determination rekindled in his eyes. He decided to temporarily put aside his burdens and step forward to stop the chaos engulfing the nation. At the Smile Factory, Wes was searching carefully. Finally, he found the imprisoned Tontada princess, Mancheri, in a hidden corner of the factory. Mancheri was so small and adorable, not even as long as one of Wes' fingers. Her delicate face was filled with fear and anxiety, her small body huddled in the corner like a frightened bird. "Hello, Princess Mancheri," Wes tried to lower his voice, gentle as a breeze caressing flowers, afraid that a louder voice would startle the fragile creature. "Who are you?" Mancheri looked up at Wes with a mixture of confusion and caution. "I'm here to save you," Wes said with a smile filled with kindness. "Great. Thank you so much." Mancheri's eyes lit up with surprise, and she jumped up excitedly, her small face flushed with excitement. The Tonta clan, by nature, is pure and kind, their hearts as clear as a stream, without a trace of impurities. This also gave them a fatal weakness: they were easily deceived by a single word. They had been lured into this underground factory as slaves by the Don Quixote family with a simple lie. During their days of enslavement, they offered no resistance, simply hoping that their promises would be honored, unaware that they were being ruthlessly deceived and exploited. "I've defeated the Don Quixote family. You can go home now," Wes whispered. "That's wonderful," Mancheri cheered. As Mancheri cheered, more and more Tontadas gathered, hearing the commotion. They had come with the determination to rescue their princess, but when they saw a tall, unfamiliar figure standing beside her, they became wary. "Let go of the princess," they shouted, drawing up their crude weapons and preparing to fight Wes. "No, he's a good man," Mancheri explained hurriedly. She recounted the details of how Wes had found her and informed her of the Don Quixote family's defeat. The Tontadas lowered their weapons and gazed at Wes with admiration, as if he were a hero who had saved them. Wes suddenly felt a pang of guilt for deceiving these innocent little creatures. A tinge of guilt welled up in his heart. After all, these Tontadas were so naive. However, he suppressed the guilt when he thought of his precious herbs, which needed careful care. "It's dangerous out there," Wes began to coax the Tontada people. He vividly described a paradise he had found: fertile land, clear streams, a mild climate, no war, no danger, a paradise on earth. The Tontada people were indeed easily fooled. Their eyes lit up with longing after hearing Wes's description. They immediately believed his words and, without hesitation, took him back to the Tontada kingdom, the dwarf kingdom he had built beneath the forests of Greenbit Island. The kingdom was bustling with activity as a large-scale migration began. Under Wes's guidance, they gradually migrated into his dimension. The Tontada people possessed miraculous abilities, claiming that there was no plant in the world they couldn't cultivate. This was precisely what Wes was attracted to. With him, his precious herbs would be meticulously cared for. Watching these busy little figures, he felt a mixture of guilt and anticipation, eager to see his herbs thrive under the care of the Tontida people. And Weiss hadn't completely lied, claiming that the Tontida tribe, with their own protection, would be safe from foreign invasion. Dressrosa, once a bustling city, had now fallen into even greater chaos. The streets, already riven by fighting following the fall of the Don Quixote family, were now in utter chaos. Not only were greedy pirates exploiting the city's turmoil, rampaging, burning, looting, and plundering, but even the gladiators, who normally took pride in fighting in the arena, had lost their minds in the chaos and joined the looting. These gladiators set their sights firmly on the king's rise. It had once symbolized the power and wealth of Dressrosa, and they imagined it must hold the countless treasures plundered by the Don Quixote family over the years. Capture this place. There must be the treasure of Don Quixote family in there. A swordsman with a face full of flesh and holding a huge sword waved his weapon and shouted loudly, with greed flashing in his eyes, and his expression seemed to have seen the mountains of gold and silver treasures right in front of him. Chapter 289, Kneeling. Back on King's Islands, King Riku led his few remaining men, desperately resisting wave after wave of attacks. Though old, King Riku's eyes still shone with a steely determination. With each enemy charge, King Riku led the charge, brandishing his weapons in a desperate struggle. His men followed closely behind him. Though outnumbered, each one held the resolve to the death, fighting to protect the nation's last remaining dignity. However, the numerical disparity was too great. The enemy surged in from all directions like a swarm of locusts. As soon as one wave was repelled, another surged forward. King Riku and his men gradually began to wear thin. They bore wounds in varying degrees, their clothes stained with blood, but they gritted their teeth and held their ground. This sudden chaos had ruthlessly destroyed many of the city's homes, leaving only ruins for those once warm and welcoming. Countless people were displaced, deprived of shelter and the very supplies they needed to survive, shrouding the city in a shroud of despair. In this predicament, the treasure became a ray of hope for saving the city and helping the people rebuild. King Riku knew that only by safeguarding this treasure, which might still exist, could he secure sufficient funds to resettle the displaced and repair the war-torn city. Therefore, no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how difficult the situation, he would never give up, determined to fight for the future of Dressrosa. Charge! They can't hold on any longer, a ferocious-looking pirate leader roared at the top of his lungs, brandishing his blood-stained longsword. At his incitement, the pirates and swordsmen, like wild beasts driven by lust, launched another frenzied attack on King's Hill. On King's Hill, King Riku and Cyrus were already exhausted. The blades of their longswords, after a long and intense battle, had become warped, like two leaves without a sharp edge. Their physical strength, like a well about to dry up, was nearly drained by the wave after wave of attacks. Each swing of their weapon seemed to draw on the last of their life force, their movements becoming increasingly slow and heavy. Is this the end? King Riku's voice trembled with despair. A flicker of resentment flashed in his eyes, but his physical exhaustion left him feeling profoundly powerless. Just then, a pirate seized King Riku's moment of distraction and swung his weapon, sending King Riku's sword careening away. The sword, which had accompanied King Riku for years, arced through the air before landing with a clang, sending up a small cloud of dust. It's over, the pirate saw this, a sinister grin on his face. He raised his longsword high, the sharp blade gleaming coldly in the sunlight, and slashed at King Riku's neck. King Riku watched the approaching blade, a wave of desolation welling up in his heart. He slowly closed his eyes, bracing himself for his own death. His mind drifted back to the once prosperous Dressrosa, the laughing people, the bustling streets, his own family. He felt a deep sense of remorse for no longer being able to protect this land, but now, everything seemed to be coming to an end. 1 second, 2 seconds. Time seemed to stretch infinitely longer, yet King Riku felt no expected pain. Confused, he opened his eyes, and was instantly stunned by the sight before him. All he could see was red. A horrifying, blood-red hue. The bodies of the pirates and swordsmen attacking King's Hill were gradually turning to dust, as if mercilessly crushed by some invisible force. From their bodies, strands of blood-red threads emerged, seemingly possessing life, weaving and tangling in the air. Finally, like rivers flowing into the sea, these red threads converged into a single man's hands. As the threads converged, in Weiss's hands, The life force of thousands of people was compressed and refined, ultimately forming a fist-sized Philosopher's Stone. The stone emanated a captivating yet dangerous light, a shimmering crimson glow that seemed to evoke countless souls struggling and wailing within. King Riku, Kyrus, and their subordinates stared blankly at the sky, speechless and stunned by the sudden, terrifying scene. Their hearts were filled with fear of this mysterious power and immense curiosity about the man who had suddenly appeared. "Who is he?" a subordinate asked in a trembling voice. "He's the one who defeated Doflamingo." Kyrus's eyes shone with a hint of awe. King Riku's eyes widened as he stared at Weiss's seemingly frail figure. He couldn't believe that this seemingly frail man before him could possess such terrifying power. He recalled Doflamingo's terrifying strength and found it difficult to imagine how this man had defeated him. After completing this, Weiss was about to turn and leave, oblivious to the crowd's surprise and fear. However, he was stopped by Cyrus. Weiss frowned slightly and looked down at Cyrus. "Please return Violet to us," Cyrus said anxiously. This upright man was usually as strong as steel, but now, for Violet, he put aside all his pride. He didn't know how to ask, so he simply and sincerely said, "Please." Violet was captured by him. King Riku's heart tightened at Cyrus' words. His heart instantly lifted, and a flicker of fear flashed in his eyes. He had already lost his eldest daughter and could not bear the pain of losing another loved one. Violet was more than just a family member to him, but also one of the hopes for the country's revival. He looked at Weiss nervously, waiting for his answer, his hands unconsciously clenched, his nails digging into his palms. "Violet." Weiss stopped in his tracks, and the image of Violet flashed in his mind. The woman with violet eyes who had once tried to spy on him. "Your Excellency, please ask for anything you want, just spare my daughter." King Riku's voice was a little hoarse, and he tried to sound sincere and humble. In this moment, he cast aside all the dignity he once held as a king and knelt on one knee for his daughter's safety. He knew that in the face of absolute strength, dignity and pride were vulnerable. In this chaotic world, strength was the key to everything, and the mysterious and powerful man before him held his daughter's life and death in his hands. Chapter 290 Taking Over. Weiss quietly gazed at King Riku, who knelt on the ground. His eyes were deep and cold, as if he were examining an object. He weighed the pros and cons in his mind, his thoughts racing like rapidly rotating gears. He considered his plan. The heart pirates alone wouldn't be able to collect enough devil fruits for him. Perhaps controlling this country is a good option. The thought flashed through Weiss's mind, like a stone dropped into a calm lake, creating ripples. If he could bring them under his wing and use them, his devil fruit collection efficiency would be greatly improved. Furthermore, this country's unique geographical location and trade connections might bring him even more unexpected gains. He needed a large number of subordinates, and these subordinates must obey him. With this thought in mind, Weiss slowly raised his hand, removed 2 bottles of potion from his bosom, and casually tossed them to King Riku and Cyrus. "Drink it," he said in a low, unequivocal voice. King Riku and Cyrus caught the potions and exchanged glances, each seeing hesitation and worry in his eyes. "We can't drink it. Who knows what's in it?" King Riku's men cried anxiously, their eyes filled with fear, fearing the 2 potions were poison. The atmosphere instantly grew tense, everyone holding their breath, watching King Riku and Kyrus' every move. However, King Riku and Kyrus hesitated only briefly before resolutely gulping down the potion. They knew they had no choice. In this world where the strong reign, resistance only carries a heavy price. They had no choice but to trust Weiss, even if it meant death. As soon as they drank, something miraculous happened. The horrific wounds on their bodies began to heal at a visible speed, like invisible hands meticulously repairing broken porcelain. Torn muscles grew back, broken bones gradually reset, the bleeding stopped, the pain subsided. Furthermore, their nearly depleted strength rapidly recovered, like dry land being moistened by a gentle rain. Strength returned to their bodies, and exhaustion vanished. "What's this?" King Riku stared at his perfectly healthy body in amazement, his eyes filled with disbelief. In reality, this was just a test from Weiss. He wanted to see if King Riku and Kyrus were truly willing to obey his orders completely for the sake of their loved ones and their survival. It was a small test, a preliminary assessment of their worthiness. If they didn't even dare to drink the 2 potions, Weiss wouldn't waste his time on them. So far, he was quite satisfied with their performance. Weiss released Violet. Violet looked around bewilderedly, but when she saw that King Riku and Kyrus were safe and sound, A flicker of surprise and relief flashed in her eyes. Weiss didn't spare them a second glance and headed straight for the castle. From today on, this country is mine. Weiss's voice was soft, but it resonated like thunder in everyone's ears. His tone was calm, as if he were stating a simple fact, yet the dominance within it shook everyone. Before anyone could react, the castle's heavy gate slowly closed with a dull roar, like a merciless barrier separating Weiss from the others and signaling the transition of power in the kingdom. "What should we do now?" a subordinate asked anxiously, his eyes filled with helplessness and confusion. Those around him looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never imagined they would face such a situation. They had fought to protect the nation's treasures, but now they were caught in a more complicated predicament. "Alice, let's calm the people first," King Riku sighed deeply, his eyes revealing a hint of helplessness and fatigue. So much had happened in such a short period of time that he felt like a small boat drifting on a turbulent sea, tossed mercilessly by fate's waves. But he knew, no matter what, the people were innocent, and he couldn't let them fall into further panic. "Don't worry, he means no harm to this country." Just as everyone was filled with worry, a voice suddenly rang out. They turned to see Luo appear behind them. "Who are you?" King Riku asked, perplexed, looking at the man in the spotted hat before him. "Trafalgar Law, just a pirate," Law replied calmly. His eyes held a hint of indifference, yet seemed to conceal some unknown story. After a brief self-introduction, King Riku and the others learned the full story from Law. It turned out that Law and the Don Quixote family had an irreconcilable feud. Seeking revenge, he struck a deal with Weiss, thus joining the campaign against the Don Quixote family. "Perhaps this is a good thing, he's very powerful, after all," one person said thoughtfully. Everyone nodded in agreement, their fear lingering in their hearts as they recalled Weiss's astonishing strength. He had effortlessly captured the entire Don Quixote family leadership. And just now, in the chaos, Weiss had dispatched thousands of pirates with a single move. That terrifying power was like that of a god descending from the heavens. Such strength could only be possessed by the legendary four emperors. On this dangerous and uncharted sea, strength is the foundation of survival, and the power Weiss displayed far exceeded their imaginations. Perhaps, under his rule, the country could truly usher in a new era of prosperity, though all was shrouded in uncertainty. In less than a day, news of the Don Quixote family's defeat spread with astonishing speed to every corner of the ocean. From the bustling island ports to the mysterious pirate bases hidden in the vast ocean, people were discussing this world-shaking event. Like a tireless information machine, the World Economic News Agency quickly and comprehensively reported the entire incident. With detailed text, vivid images, and expert analysis, they presented the Don Quixote family's downfall to the world. The cover of this report, in particular, captured everyone's attention, a photo of Weiss defeating Doflamingo with a single finger. This news, like a boulder dropped into a calm lake, shook the waters. Some pirates rejoiced at the loss of a powerful rival, others worried, fearing it would upset the inherent balance of power at sea. The nations and kingdoms of the various islands watched closely. The underworld, in particular, was in turmoil. The fall of the Don Quixote family, the underground's largest middlemen and arms dealers, was like a devastating earthquake, shattering the order of the entire underworld. Those underground forces that once had close business ties with the Don Quixote family were now plunged into panic and anxiety. Countless transactions were forced to halt, and the once stable chain of profit collapsed in an instant. A huge gap appeared in the arms trade market, and various forces were eager to compete for this piece of the lucrative market. New conflicts and disputes quietly brewed in the shadows. And the entire underworld seemed shrouded in a thick haze, filled with conspiracy and bloodshed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Naval Response. Within the vast expanse of the naval headquarters, countless warships sat neatly docked like steel behemoths. Each vessel was equipped with powerful firepower systems, its massive muzzles like the maws of a behemoth, ready to unleash devastating flames. The sails rustled in the sea breeze. The massive characters Navy, etched on the high walls with vigorous brushstrokes, each stroke imbued with boundless power, embodying the Navy's unwavering dominance. These two characters served as more than just a symbol, They served as a symbol of the Navy's authority. Overlooking the harbor, they watched over the ships and soldiers as they came and went, as if declaring to the world the Navy's absolute dominance over these waters. Within the harbor, sailors in crisp uniforms patrolled the decks with measured, powerful steps. Their gazes were resolute, their postures erect, and they maintained a constant state of vigilance, ready to safeguard peace and justice on the seas. Surprisingly, on this seemingly ordinary day, Marine headquarters was unusually bustling. Today, most of the Navy's top brass had returned to headquarters for a crucial meeting. They had arrived from various seas, aboard their respective ships, traversing the turbulent seas to discuss the world-shaking event of Doflamingo's downfall. Grand Admiral Sengoku, a battle-hardened commander with extensive leadership experience, sat at the head of the conference table with a solemn expression. Naval hero Garp remained as effortlessly carefree as ever. Beside him, Chief of Staff Churu, her face marked by the years, yet her wisdom remained undimmed. The three admirals, Aokiji, Kizaru, and Akanyu, were also present. Aokiji, still languid, leaned back in his chair, his eyes half closed. Kizaru wore a wide, yet unpredictable smile. Akanyu, with a serious expression, exuded a fiery aura. "Isn't this too much of a grand ceremony for just one Shichibuke?" Akanyu's voice echoed in the conference room. His unyielding character and unwavering commitment to justice made him skeptical of such a large-scale meeting. He believed that while the fall of a Shichibuke would cause some disturbance, it didn't warrant gathering all the high-ranking officials. Sengoku frowned slightly. He didn't want to mobilize such a large force, but Doflamingo's status was truly unique. He wasn't just an ordinary Shichibuke, but one with extensive connections in the underworld, a giant of the underworld. This time, the five elders personally issued orders, demanding that the Navy take this matter seriously and discuss countermeasures. The Shichibuke are a vital part of the world's balance, and Doflamingo is a giant of the underworld. His fall has already had a global impact, Churu explained softly, her voice clearly audible in the quiet conference room. She was well aware of the complex web of connections behind Doflamingo and the extent of his influence. This incident was far more complex than it appeared, potentially triggering a chain reaction that would threaten the stability and balance of the world. Akanyu's only response was a cold snort. He was clearly not entirely satisfied with this explanation, but he remained silent for the time being. With everyone present, the meeting officially began. The central topic was how to deal with Weiss, the mysterious figure who had suddenly risen to prominence and possessed immense power. Opinions swirled throughout the room. Some advocated a gentle approach. Others took a hard line, arguing that such a dangerous figure should not be allowed to wreak havoc on the world. Still others proposed a more conciliatory solution. Let him become one of the new Shichibuke, a vice admiral offered after careful consideration. He believed that if Weiss could be like the other Shichibuke, his power could be harnessed to maintain world peace and stability, while also avoiding direct conflict with Weiss and minimizing the Navy's losses. Sengoku nodded slightly, scanning the room, and slowly spoke, "That's a good idea." "Who'll go?" However, he was met with silence. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes revealing hesitation and doubt, but no one took the initiative to stand up and speak. After all, Weiss's strength is obvious to all. He can easily crush the entire Don Quixote family. What a powerful force that is. Everyone present knew that recruiting such a person was not an easy task, and it might even put their lives in danger. Apart from the three admirals, Garp and Sengoku himself, there was probably no one else who had enough strength and confidence to face Weiss. Boring, Akanyu frowned and muttered impatiently. His hot temper and persistent pursuit of so-called justice made him disdain to do something that he thought was a waste of time. After speaking, he stood up and strode out of the meeting room. "Aliens, so scary," Kizaru said, his signature strange ending, his face still etched with that unpredictable smile, "but I still have to protect Dr. Vegapunk." A sly glint flickered in his eyes, as if he were looking for an excuse to shirk this mission. With that, he leisurely stood up and slowly walked out of the meeting room. "Don't look at me," Garp said nonchalantly, picking his nose. "I need to go back to the East Sea." His casual demeanor and his deep concern for the East Sea made him refuse the mission without hesitation. In his heart, perhaps, something in the East Sea was far more important than this mission at Marine headquarters. With Garp's departure, the atmosphere in the meeting room grew more solemn. Finally, everyone's eyes fell on Aokiji, as if he was the only candidate. "Alala," Aokiji smiled, with a hint of helplessness and teasing in his smile, I heard that there are many beauties in Delos Rosa. In that case, I'll go there reluctantly. His tone was relaxed, but there was an imperceptible solemnity in his eyes. Zanguo looked at Aokiji, nodded slightly and said, I'll leave it to you, Aokiji. There was a hint of trust and expectation in his voice. After all, in this situation, Aokiji was the most suitable candidate. After the others dispersed, Zanguo kept Aokiji. Marshal, Aokiji looked at Zanguo in confusion, wondering if he had anything else to tell him alone. There are some things I need to tell you, Zanguo said with a serious expression. Half an hour later, Aokiji walked out of the office, scratching his head, and muttered softly, You thought it was an easy job, so troublesome. Chapter 292 Interview. While the Navy was still deliberating on how to deal with the Weiss, Morgans, always chasing the latest news, unexpectedly arrived in Dressrosa ahead of the Navy. His distinctive albatross-like form stood out against this turbulent land. Law's headache was instantly aroused when he saw Morgans appear. He looked helplessly at the news mogul and asked, You want to interview Weiss, Wes? Is that his name? Morgan's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered a rare treasure, practically leaping with excitement. Then, a barrage of questions erupted from his pointed beak like a machine gun. What's his full name? Where is he from? How did he acquire such immense power? Why did he want to bring down the Don Quixote family? What are his plans next? Law's head was buzzing as he listened to these questions. He rubbed his head helplessly and said, I'm not sure if he'll accept your interview. He hasn't come out since entering the castle 3 days ago. Luo was well aware of Weiss's mysterious and elusive nature, and he himself was curious about many things about him. It doesn't matter. I can wait forever, Morgan said nonchalantly. He believed that interviewing such a powerful and enigmatic alien was an extremely interesting and world-shaking event, and he absolutely would not miss such an opportunity. His determined eyes and excited expression showed that he was prepared to wait a long time, determined to get this interview at all costs. Whatever you say, Luo shrugged. He knew he couldn't persuade Morgans, so he could only let him go. For the past 3 days, King Riku and Cyrus had been actively rebuilding their homes with the people. Thanks to sufficient funds provided by Weiss, the reconstruction work progressed smoothly and swiftly. The streets, once ravaged by war, were gradually returning to life. Collapsed houses were repaired, and smiles began to appear on people's faces again. It seemed that amid the busy reconstruction, the terrible chaos of 3 days prior had faded from people's minds. During this time, Luo discovered that Cyrus was a master swordsman. While he possessed considerable talent and a promising future, his current abilities were still far too weak. Luo understood that in this world filled with dangers and challenges, only by constantly improving his own abilities could he survive and pursue his own sense of justice and purpose. Thus, he decided to seek instruction from Cyrus, hoping that under his guidance, his skills would achieve a qualitative leap. The heavy castle door creaked open with a long, dull sound. Weiss emerged slowly, his face slightly fatigued, yet his eyes shone with excitement and satisfaction. Natural sunlight, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time, poured down upon him, its warm rays like a gentle caress, warming him to the skin. For 3 days, Weiss had been immersed in his research within the castle, day and night, without a wink of sleep. After this arduous exploration, Weiss finally discovered the profound difference between ordinary people and devil fruit users. The genes of the two have undergone fundamental changes. Devil fruit users' genes have been rewritten, imbued with unique information and energy. However, Weiss's research has only scratched the surface. Further exploration requires more samples. He knows this won't be easy, but his intense thirst for the unknown prevents him from giving up easily. Weiss naturally won't consume a devil fruit, after all. He has his own unique philosophies and pursuits. But that doesn't mean it's powerless for him. In his view, devil fruits are born from humanity's endless fantasies and hopes, a wondrous manifestation of the power deep within the soul influencing the real world. In essence, they're not much different from the magic he's familiar with. Both are manifestations of mysterious powers beyond conventional understanding. Uncovering the secrets behind devil fruits might allow him to take a more solid step forward in his exploration of life and power. Ha ha ha! A hearty, slightly excited laugh suddenly rang out, instantly catching Weiss's attention. Weiss turned slightly, his gaze fixed on the source of the laughter, and whispered, Morgans, it's an honor that you know my name. Morgans hurried forward, bowing respectfully, his posture extremely low. His eyes gleamed with a fiery glint, and he asked with anticipation, I wonder if there's a chance I could interview you. What's the fee? Weiss asked the crucial question slowly, a shrewd look in his eyes. How you name your price? Morgans replied without hesitation, his wealth evident. In his eyes, as long as he could secure this precious interview, money was no object. However, Weiss wasn't seeking money, he was seeking some extremely valuable intelligence. After a moment's reflection, he concluded that accepting Morgan's interview wouldn't cause him any trouble, and might even yield some benefits. So, the two quickly reached an agreement. Once the interview began, Morgans unleashed a barrage of questions. Weiss answered each question with a composed demeanor. His account covered a wide range of topics, from personal experiences to insights into mysterious phenomena and even bizarre anecdotes from other universes. Some of this information could be reported, becoming world-shaking news, while others, so shocking they were forced to remain buried deep within Morgan's mind. Although Weiss was describing events from other universes, a fact unknown to Morgans, this did not prevent him from being deeply captivated by what he described. Each novel perspective, each fantastical story, was like opening a door to a whole new world, expanding Morgans's horizons. His eyes widened in wonder at times, his face filled with awe, his pen furiously scribbled, afraid to miss a single intriguing detail. Overall, this interview was a truly enriching one for Morgans, and he knew that with this exclusive information, he would surely create a global sensation. So, Mr. Irving, what are your demands? Morgans was still secretly thinking, no matter how outrageous the offer, he would find a way to meet it. Weiss stated his request slowly and steadily. Chapter 293 Navy. Morgans carefully left a permanent pointer and hurried away. His mind was already racing with thoughts about tomorrow's headline, a shocking exclusive report, enough to once again thrust his news agency into the spotlight. Weiss carefully stored the permanent pointer Morgans had left behind and then summoned Law, King Riku, and Kyrus. He gently raised his index finger, and 3 tiny beams of light shot out from his fingertip like lightning, piercing the minds of the 3 men with pinpoint accuracy. Instantly, a memory emerged from their minds, a precious memory of Doflamingo's training in Haki. This memory revealed the perceptual techniques of observation Haki, the enhanced use of armament Haki, and even the secrets to cultivating the extremely rare Conqueror Haki. As the 3 men gradually recovered from the sudden onslaught of information, Weiss calmly addressed them. You are too weak. Harness the time to strengthen. He knew his impending actions would inevitably incur the wrath of the world government. While he himself wasn't afraid of the world government's pressure, Law, King Riku, and Cyrus were far from strong enough to handle the ensuing storm. Haki, Cyrus clenched his fists, his eyes blazing with a fiery fighting spirit. For too long, he'd been repeatedly trapped in battle by his own lack of strength, and that feeling of powerlessness had left him tired of his own weakness. Now, with such a golden opportunity to become stronger, how could he let it slip? Without hesitation, Law and Cyrus immediately devoted themselves to the cultivation of Haki. They knew time was running out, and every minute of practice could guarantee their survival in the coming crisis. King Riku, however, was overwhelmed by the numerous tasks of rebuilding his nation, and his advancing age left him with diminished physical strength and energy. Therefore, he decided to teach his young and promising subordinates the methods of Haki, hoping that their growth would strengthen the nation and prepare them for the unknown challenges to come. Along the sun-kissed shores of Dressrosa, Violet and Rebecca strolled leisurely. The sea breeze, like a long-lost friend, caressed their cheeks, bringing with it the unique salty, moist scent of the deep ocean. It's been ages since I've been to the beach, Rebecca said, her eyes slightly closed, her long eyelashes fluttering in the breeze, her face radiating a sense of profound contentment. She relaxed, letting the sea breeze caress every inch of her skin like silky satin, as if all her worries and fatigue were quietly washed away. Violet, a faint smile on her face, her eyes filled with doting. She gazed quietly at Rebecca beside her. The charm in her eyes and eyebrows was so similar to the memory of her sister, like a mirror reflecting the good old days. Aunt Violet, what kind of man is Mr. Erwin? Rebecca suddenly opened her eyes, her bright eyes gleaming with curiosity. She was deeply interested in Wes, the legendary figure who defeated the Don Quixote family. However, he seemed shrouded in mystery, always veiled behind a veil of secrecy. Rebecca had never had the chance to meet him, which only heightened her curiosity and doubt. He's a very powerful man, Violet said, tilting her head slightly, her brows furrowed as she pondered for a moment. The fleeting moment with Wes flashed through her mind, but it was too brief for her to find the words to describe it in detail. The powerful aura and mysterious air he emanated from her were still fresh in her memory, yet she struggled to express it in words. Just then, Rebecca's gaze was drawn to something strange on the sea. "What's that?" She pointed with a slender finger at a few approaching black specks, her voice tinged with confusion and alarm. The specks stood out against the vast expanse of the ocean. Violet's heart suddenly tightened, and she immediately activated the power of the staring fruit. Her vision instantly pierced through layers of space, focusing precisely on the tiny black dots. A warship? Why are the Navy here? When she finally made out the figure standing at the bow, a yawning, languid-looking man, a cold sweat instantly broke out on Violet's forehead, trickling down her cheeks and dripping onto the sand beneath her feet. "What's wrong, Aunt Violet?" Rebecca, keenly aware of Violet's abnormality, asked anxiously. "It's Admiral Aokiji." "Rebecca, report quickly," Violet spoke as she hurried toward the port. The Admiral's arrival was bound to spell trouble. The others needed to be informed quickly so they could prepare. Without hesitation, Rebecca turned and sprinted towards the castle. She knew the gravity of the situation, and her steps quickened, sending strings of tiny grains of sand flying through the air. By the time Violet arrived at the port, the Navy ship was already approaching, its massive hull casting a shadow across the sea. The soldiers aboard the ship formed neatly, preparing to disembark. However, they were met by the people of Dressrosa. "Go back, Navy, what are you doing here at this time?" A burly dress-resin man roared angrily, his broad chest heaving violently, his eyes filled with vigilance and hostility. "Are you here to avenge the Don Quixote family?" another citizen shouted. It turned out that the people of Dressrosa had learned of the Don Quixote family's evil deeds through the toys that had transformed back into human form. They also knew that King Riku was secretly manipulated by Doflamingo to commit such brutal massacres. The entire nation had been deeply deceived, its former trust ruthlessly trampled upon. Consequently, they no longer trusted the Navy, their ally among the Shichibukai. At this moment, facing the arrival of the Navy, they spontaneously gathered at the port, using their bodies to build a solid defense line, determined not to let the Navy set foot on this land. They wanted to use their own strength to protect this newly reborn homeland and never let any external threats destroy their hard-earned peace and tranquility. Chapter 294 Return Without Success. "Alala, can you please let us through?" Aokiji's distinctive, slightly languid voice echoed across the harbor, reverberating in the crowd's ears. His tall, slightly slouched figure stood at the bow, his eyes seemingly absent-minded yet shone with an indescribable depth. If a king were here, facing these civilians blocking the way of the Navy, he would likely treat them as pirates without hesitation. With his unyielding and aggressive style, he would undoubtedly use ruthless force to force his way through. However, Aokiji, as a representative of the Devish faction, was noticeably more gentle with the civilians. His words, while pleading, carried an undeniable authority. "We will never trust the Navy again," an old man shouted angrily, his weathered face etched with vicissitudes and resentment. "That's right, they're in league with Doflamingo," another young man joined in the shouting. The people's emotions grew increasingly agitated, and they raised a variety of weapons, from worn-out farm tools to homemade swords. These tools, once used for peaceful labor or self-defense, were now pointed at the Navy. Seeing this, the Navy soldiers reacted swiftly, their well-trained guns trained on the angry crowd. For a moment, the atmosphere in the port reached a fever pitch. The air seemed frozen by the tense confrontation. Both sides were on edge, the situation like a bomb about to explode, ready to explode at any moment. "Halil, you need to calm down, calm down." Aokiji still tried to defuse the situation with his seemingly casual tone, knowing full well that if he opened fire, it would inevitably lead to irreversible tragedy. He did not want to attack these innocent civilians. Deep in his heart, he always had a sense of compassion for them. He slowly activated his freezing ability, and the temperature around him began to drop sharply. A trace of cold air spread from his body, like a pair of invisible, icy hands, gradually reaching out to the surroundings. He simply wanted to freeze these agitated civilians for a moment, temporarily incapacitating them and thus preventing a bloody conflict. "Stop it!" Weiss's figure appeared before them like a ghost. Observation hack. He didn't detect it. Was it teleportation? Aokiji was startled, his previously indifferent gaze suddenly sharpening as he studied Weiss, trying to discern any clues. "I think you're here to see me," Weiss said calmly. Upon hearing Weiss's words, the Marines quickly turned their guns on him. I don't like being pointed at, Weiss whispered with a slight frown. As soon as he finished speaking, something strange happened. The Marines pointed their guns at each other. Their faces were filled with fear and confusion, their fingers uncontrollably on the verge of pulling the trigger. Whoosh! Aokiji saw this and exhaled a breath of cold air, instantly freezing hundreds of Marines and preventing the tragic internecine slaughter. Aokiji's eyes betrayed a solemnity. He knew full well that Weiss before him was no ordinary man, possessing an elusive and powerful force. Interesting. I wonder how it compares to my freezing magic. Weiss raised his head slightly, a glint of curiosity and challenge in his eyes. He wanted to test Aokiji's strength, to see what truly distinguished this admiral. Aokiji maintained his outward appearance of relaxation, even a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth, but inwardly, he was already fully prepared. I'm not here to fight this time, Aokiji said slowly, trying to ease the tension once again, not wanting to engage in a fight with Weiss easily. Oh, Weiss raised an eyebrow slightly, a look of doubt and anticipation in his eyes. I'm here to extend an invitation. Aokiji's face straightened, his expression becoming serious and solemn. I invite you to become one of the Shichibukai. Not interested. I don't want to be someone's pawn, Weiss ruthlessly refused, without a trace of hesitation or compromise. That's harsh, young man. Aokiji frowned slightly, feeling somewhat helpless at Weiss's blunt refusal and sharp words. If you have nothing else to do, then leave. This is my territory now. Weiss's tone hardened. That won't do. Dressrosa is a member of the world government, Aokiji tried to argue. Not anymore, Weiss said calmly, his words exploding like a bombshell in Aokiji's ears. Aokiji was stunned. He had never expected Weiss to be so bold as to declare Dressrosa's withdrawal from the world government. His face darkened, his eyes revealing anger and shock. Do you know what you're saying? His voice was low and suppressed. Didn't you hear clearly? Aokiji's gaze locked with Weiss, a hint of sternness in his eyes. How bold of you to say that. Don't you take the world government seriously? His question echoed in the air, carrying the authority of a Navy admiral and a vindication of the world government's authority. It's just a civilization that hasn't even left its home planet. What's there to be afraid of? Weiss replied nonchalantly, her tone dripping with contempt for the world government. Are you really an alien? Aokiji's curiosity piqued, and he began to pry for information on Weiss. He believed the identity and background of this suddenly appearing, powerful man were crucial, perhaps offering insights into how to counter them. My identity will be published in the World Economic Report tomorrow, Weiss said, before turning and strolling off with a dashing demeanor. Hey, where's Doflamingo? Seeing Weiss about to leave, Aokiji quickly mentioned one of the key reasons for his visit. The complex forces and myriad secrets behind Doflamingo couldn't just disappear without a trace. You were used as my guinea pig. Weiss's response was simple and direct, yet it made Aokiji's heart sink. Ah, things are taking a turn for the worst. Aokiji scratched his head helplessly. He could sense that Weiss's appearance and actions were about to plunge the entire world into chaos. This mission has completely failed, Aokiji sighed inwardly. He had originally hoped to successfully recruit Weiss as a Shichibukai and to understand the affairs following Doflamingo's downfall, but now both of these goals had been dashed. He stood for a long time, staring at Weiss's departure, pondering how to report this dire situation to Marshal Sengoku. Chapter 295 Future. Did he say that? Zanguo gripped the receiver, his expression grave, his brow furrowed. I'm not exaggerating at all. Aokiji's signature lazy voice echoed from the other end of the line, and even through the receiver, one could imagine him scratching his head helplessly. Aokiji knew the contents of this report were shocking, so even though he usually had a casual demeanor, he tried his best to be clear and precise, ensuring Zanguo fully understood the situation. I understand, Zanguo uttered these 3 words slowly, a hint of resignation and fatigue in his tone. He replaced the receiver, then slowly leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath to calm the turmoil caused by the news. Churu, watching Sengoku's reaction, couldn't help but sigh softly. I never thought that scoundrel would be reduced to such a state. Doflamingo, her longtime rival, had stirred up trouble at sea and committed countless evil deeds. His current fate filled Churu with a wave of emotion. Just a piece of scum from the sea, Sengoku snorted coldly, his words filled with disgust and disdain. His adopted son had died at Doflamingo's hands, a painful memory. Whenever he thought of it, Sengoku's heart burned with rage. If it weren't for Doflamingo's status as a former celestial dragon, which gave him pause, Sengoku would have slain him with a single blow. Now that he knew of Doflamingo's fate, Sengoku felt a certain relief, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from his heart. That's the end of this matter, Sengoku said sternly, his eyes gleaming with determination and resolve. In his view, Doflamingo was a thing of the past, and the Navy didn't need to waste any more time and energy on this fallen figure. After all, the Navy shouldered a heavy responsibility, and there were many pressing issues across the ocean. They couldn't let a defeated pawn hinder their progress. Leave the rest to CP0, Sengoku immediately ordered. He knew that CP0, as a secret spy agency directly under the world government, possessed unique intelligence-gathering capabilities and operational methods. They were the perfect people to handle the potential aftermath of Doflamingo's actions. The Navy, however, truly had more important matters to attend to. After Aokiji left Dressrosa, Weiss returned to the castle. He then released Black Dwarf and his people. Black Dwarf and his people looked around in confusion, but upon recognizing Weiss, awe filled their eyes. "Help me protect this country until I return." Weiss's voice was calm, yet brimming with undeniable authority. He had matters to attend to, and after so much turmoil, Dressrosa needed reliable protection. He saw Black Dwarf and his people as the most suitable candidates. "Leave everything to me," Black Dwarf promised, patting his chest with a look of determination. He knew Weiss's strength and was grateful to him. Naturally, he was willing to serve Weiss and protect this land in return for his kindness. Watching this, Law clenched his fists. He felt a surge of resentment and self-blame. "I can't help at all," he thought silently, feeling so powerless in the face of these things. Law knew that only with sufficient strength could he truly protect what he wanted to protect and have a say in complex situations. So, he vowed to practice even harder, improve his abilities, and never again find himself in such a helpless situation. With a single leap, Weiss soared into the sky like a meteor, quickly disappearing into the layers of clouds. Amidst the vast sea of clouds, he leisurely produced the permanent compass he had received from Morgans. The compass trembled slightly, as if sensing a call from somewhere, then slowly began to point in a specific direction. After several hours of flight, Weiss soared like an eagle, surveying everything below from high above. His gaze finally settled on a small island. "This is Egghead, what a wonderful island," Weiss whispered to himself, a hint of curiosity and scrutiny in his eyes. This island, affiliated with the world government, was home to the renowned Vegapunk Research Institute, known as 500 years into the future. With Weiss's exceptional vision, even from this high altitude, he could clearly discern countless details on the island. Everything on Egghead exuded an awe-inspiring aura of sophistication, like a dreamland detached from the outside world, a world completely different from the outside world. The bizarrely shaped buildings, the technological gadgets gleaming with mysterious light, and the intelligent machines bustling back and forth all demonstrated the island's highly advanced technology. Weiss circled in the air for a moment, then, like a falling meteor, descended from the sky directly onto this mysterious island. However, to his surprise, as soon as his feet touched the ground, the island's alarms blared. "Intruders! Intruders!" Countless Den-Den-Mushi wailed in unison, their piercing sirens piercing the island's tranquility, echoing in the air and conveying a sense of tension. Hearing the alarm, the Marines responded swiftly. They rushed out from their various strongholds in a well-trained, commanding formation, weapons clutched in hand, eyes etched with vigilance and seriousness, as they quickly converged on Weiss's position. At the same time, the world government CP agents sprang into action. Like ghosts, they silently emerged from hidden corners. With their agility and skill, they quickly formed a tight circle around Weiss. In a short moment, Weiss was surrounded by a phalanx of Marines and CP personnel, all of whom were wary of the enemy. They stared at Weiss with a fierce gaze, as if they were examining a highly dangerous individual, ready to attack without hesitation at the command. Weiss, on the other hand, stood there calmly, his eyes clear of any panic, oblivious to the tense situation, observing his wary opponents with interest. Chapter 296 Yellow Monkey. "Who is it?" The Marines' voices shone with alarm and questioning. Vegapunk, as the government's most prized scientist, was of undeniable importance. Protecting him was both their duty and their duty to monitor this brilliant scientist. However, Weiss ignored these inquiries. His gaze drifted directly toward the research facility, silently thinking, "Vegapunk is right there." Without hesitation, Weiss strode towards the facility. Stop! The Marines, seeing Weiss showed no sign of stopping, were instantly distraught. They considered Weiss's actions a grave threat to the island's security and a blatant challenge to their mission. Without further ado, they launched their attack. Instantly, the roar of gunfire erupted, a deafening roar that echoed across the island. The flickering flames and thick smoke enveloped the once peaceful and tranquil Eagerhead Island in a tense atmosphere of war. When the smoke cleared, a scene astonished the Marines and agents. Weiss stood there, unharmed. He frowned slightly and uttered two words, "In the way." With a gentle wave of his hands, the Marines and agents who had just been attacking him were instantly enveloped in a strange red light. Then, their bodies melted, transforming into the Philosopher's Stone in the blink of an eye. Kaine. At that moment, a strange voice echoed, its voice carrying a unique languid and playful air. "Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light?" This iconic line. Kizaru had already appeared on the scene, raising his right leg and launching a lightning-fast kick towards Weiss's head. The speed was so great that a streak of golden light streaked through the air. Swish! However, to their surprise, Kizaru's decisive kick seemed to hide an invisible wall, sending him flying backwards like a kite with its string cut, smashing into several buildings. A moment later, Kizaru slowly rose from the ruins, dusting himself off, muttering, "Strange ability, Q." At this time, however, his eyes were noticeably more serious, no longer as playful as before. "Don't get in my way, Kizaru. I'm here to find Vegapunk." Weiss continued walking straight towards the research institute, his brief encounter with Kizaru unfazed. "That won't do. My mission is to protect Dr. Vegapunk from anyone," Kizaru said, as a golden sword suddenly materialized in his hand. "Aim no Murakumo." Kizaru swung his sword, and a burst of sharp sword energy swept towards Weiss. Weiss also instantly possessed a sword, and charged forward, meeting Kizaru's blade. Ding ding ding. For a moment, the two swords clashed, emitting a series of crisp clashes. Their figures vanished and reappeared in this fierce clash, their speed dizzying. However, after this fierce battle, Weiss was clearly at a disadvantage. "Brother's swordsmanship is terrible," Kizaru said, sarcastically, as he pinned Weiss down. His smug smile was even more infuriating. Weiss ignored him, knowing full well that if he engaged Kizaru in swordplay at this moment, he would struggle to achieve his goal. Gravity, 10 times. Instantly, a powerful force of gravity emanated from his body, instantly creating a massive crater in the ground. Everything around him seemed to be tightly bound by this gravity. Kizaru's movements were greatly affected, becoming noticeably slower. Just as Kizaru paused, a clone of Weiss suddenly appeared behind him, longsword in hand, and without hesitation, it lunged at Kizaru's heart. Kizaru, possessing a powerful observation haki, instantly sensed the danger behind this. His body instantly transformed into an elemental beam of light. Light, after all, is weightless and unaffected by gravity. He soared into the air, recondensing into human form. Yosakani no Magatama, steadying himself in the air, Kizaru waved his hands, launching countless beams of light at Weiss. Like brilliant meteors, the beams whizzed towards Weiss at breakneck speed and dazzling light. However, to Kizaru's surprise, none of them hit Weiss. Instead, the beams landed all around, instantly triggering a series of explosions. Boom, boom, the deafening explosions echoed one after another, destroying every building in the vicinity. For a moment, the island was littered with rubble, smoke, and devastation. "Oh no. I'm going to get scolded by the doctor again, but is my ability completely useless?" Kizaru frowned, filled with frustration. He never imagined that his fierce attacks hadn't caused any real damage to Weiss, but instead had left the island's buildings in ruins. As Kizaru pondered this, suddenly, rays of light converged from all sides, quickly forming a massive cube-shaped barrier that trapped him securely. Kizaru initially dismissed the barrier, believing it could trap a Navy admiral like himself. However, as he instinctively reached out to touch the barrier, to see if he could easily break through it, a sudden sense of weakness overtook him. It felt as if his hands were touching seawater. "What's going on?" Kizaru's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. He couldn't fathom the strangeness of this suddenly appearing barrier. "USPers are being restrained by the pyrobrone factor. I purified it and incorporated it into the barrier, and it's proven effective," Weiss explained calmly from a distance. "Devil fruit wielders, while immensely powerful, also have weaknesses. He happened to have mastered the key factor that could restrain them and skillfully employed it within this barrier. Koichi, even the doctor can't do something like this, though trapped," Kizaru maintained a half-smile, a few teasing aside. However, he knew deep down that his current situation wasn't a good one. While his Pikachu fruit power made him invincible in battle, his armament haki and observation haki had already been cultivated to extremely high levels. Devil fruit power alone wouldn't have made him a marine admiral, his own strength was considerable. This barrier is long enough to hold you for several minutes. With that, Weiss ignored Kizaru, who struggled within the barrier, and turned to head straight for the research institute. His purpose for coming to Egghead Island was clear, to find Vegapunk. This is bad, Kizaru observed Weiss's retreating figure, scratching his head in annoyance. He knew the enchantment that would ensue if Weiss were to meet Dr. Vegapunk. But now, trapped within this barrier, he couldn't escape anytime soon, a real headache. Chapter 297 Tick Away. Upon entering the mysterious, technologically charged research facility, Weiss was immediately met with a rather peculiar-looking man. A faint blush tinged his cheeks, hinting at a childlike innocence. His hair had already turned gray, yet this didn't diminish the sagacity that emanated from him. Most striking of all, his head, twice the size of his body, seemed filled with boundless wisdom and ingenuity. His enormous tongue, hanging from his mouth and extending down to his abdomen, combined with his slender legs, gave him a strange and unique appearance. This man was none other than the renowned Dr. Vegapunk. Dr. Vegapunk, nice to meet you, Weiss began, only to be interrupted eagerly by Vegapunk. You truly are an alien. Vegapunk's eyes instantly lit up, as if he had discovered a rare treasure, and he peppered him with questions. These questions ranged from the mysteries of the universe to alien technology, from the landscape of Weiss's hometown to his special abilities. They flooded in, leaving Weiss completely bewildered. Vegapunk seemed to realize he had been a little too eager. He scratched his head sheepishly and said, "Sorry, no need." Weiss smiled faintly and waved his hand, then his expression turned serious. "The world government will be here soon. Come with me." In truth, the relationship between Vegapunk and the world government had always been uneasy. Although he was under house arrest on this island by the world government, ostensibly for protection, it actually restricted his freedom. He couldn't carry out many research projects according to his own wishes, often having to follow the world government's instructions. It was only because the world government provided him with ample financial support that he was able to stay. Therefore, for Vegapunk, being able to break free from the constraints of the world government would be a truly wonderful opportunity. And Weiss, of course, was well aware of the intricacies of this. "I don't take the world government seriously." Weiss's first words were like a bombshell, instantly shocking Vegapunk. In Vegapunk's mind, the world government was a behemoth with supreme authority, controlling countless global affairs. How could he not be surprised by the man before him making such a boast so casually? This planet's technology and civilization are so backward. Devil fruits and haki are the only things of interest, Weiss continued, a hint of disdain in his eyes, as if everything on this planet seemed trivial to him. The universe. Upon hearing Weiss's words, Vegapunk looked up at the vast sky, his eyes filled with deep longing. For him, the vast universe had always been filled with endless mystery and temptation. He longed for the opportunity to truly explore it. "How about coming with me?" Weiss invited, his gaze fixed on Vegapunk, awaiting his response. Vegapunk frowned slightly, slowly glancing around. This research institute was the product of years of hard work. The sophisticated instruments and ongoing experiments embodied his wisdom and perseverance. Taking everything with him was no easy task. After all, the world government wouldn't let him leave easily and would surely do everything in their power to stop him. "You can't bear to part with this institute, leave it to me." Weiss, sensing Vegapunk's hesitation, unhesitatingly spread his hands. A massive rift in the air outside appeared, like a gaping mouth. Before Vegapunk could react, it expanded rapidly, swallowing the entire institute and everything within it in one gulp. The entire process was so fast that Vegapunk couldn't react. Elsewhere, trapped within the barrier, Kizaru watched helplessly as the institute vanished before his very eyes. "This is going to be trouble," Kizaru said, sweat breaking out on his forehead and trickling down his cheeks. He knew he had made a serious mistake. If anything happened to Dr. Vegapunk, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the world government. A few minutes later, Satan appeared on Future Island. His face was stern, his eyes piercing. As he landed, his gaze fixed on the former research institute. His expression instantly darkened, as if a dark cloud had descended upon it, suffocating him. "What's going on?" Satan's voice was low and cold, filled with questioning, his gaze piercing Kizaru like an arrow. As you can see, Dr. Vegapunk has been taken away. Kizaru, still in his usual relaxed demeanor, shrugged and replied leisurely. He felt he had done his best, but the sudden appearance was too unbelievably powerful, leaving him stranded. Useless, Satan rebuked Kizaru mercilessly. In Satan's eyes, Kizaru, as an admiral of the Navy, shouldered the crucial responsibility of protecting this place and Vegapunk. Now, allowing Vegapunk to be so easily abducted was sheer dereliction of duty. Hearing this reprimand, Kizaru shrugged helplessly once more. I'm trapped, there's nothing I can do. While there was a hint of defense in his tone, it was more of a sense of resignation. After all, the fact was clear, the man had been taken right before his eyes. What is this? Satan only then noticed the barrier that trapped Kizaru. He frowned, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He slowly stepped forward, reaching out to touch the barrier, to see what could be so powerful as to trap even a Navy admiral. As his hand touched the barrier, he felt a sudden sense of weakness. Satan's frown deepened, his eyes revealing a hint of surprise and solemnity. Satan, filled with confusion and resentment, decided to try again. He quickly concentrated his haki on his staff, and the ordinary cane was instantly enveloped in a halo of haki. Then, with a sudden surge of force, he thrust the staff fiercely into the barrier, hoping to shatter it with a single blow fueled by haki. However, to his surprise, the barrier remained unmoved. His attack was like an ant trying to shake a tree, having no real impact at all. Seeing this, Satan gritted his teeth and increased his strength once more. Veins bulged in his arms, and his entire body trembled slightly from the exertion. But even with all his might, the barrier showed no sign of breaking. HMPH, Satan snorted coldly, retracting his staff. His expression darkened, and anger simmered within him. Vegapunk's importance to the world government, and now that he had been taken away, he couldn't even break the barrier that trapped Kizaru. This filled him with immense frustration and anger. He stood there, looking around with a cold gaze, thinking about how to deal with this sudden change and how to find Vegapunk and save this serious situation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Reward. How is this world? Weiss spread his arms, a proud expression on his face, as he showed Vegapunk the unique world he had created. A world, Vegapunk's eyes widened, filled with curiosity and wonder. Like an explorer entering a treasure trove, he excitedly surveyed everything around him. Is this a different dimension? He wondered, his heart filled with a desire to explore this strange yet magical space. You could say I created it, Weiss confirmed with a smile. It's astonishing, Vegapunk exclaimed heartily. He slowly raised his head, his gaze focused on the sun and moon in the sky. A closer look revealed that they bore clear signs of artificiality. They weren't naturally occurring celestial bodies, but rather meticulously designed and created. Farther in the distance, a tribe of tens of thousands of aliens bustled about, each one moving about busily, living their own lives, adding a unique vitality and energy to the world. After a moment's deliberation, Weiss allocated a vast expanse of land to the north to Vegapunk. You can do whatever research you want here. This granted Vegapunk immense freedom and space, allowing him to fully display his talents. This is truly exciting. Vegapunk's face flushed with excitement, his eyes gleaming with a fiery glint, as if he could already see a bright future here. However, a moment later, his expression shifted to worry. I need a lot of things. There's nothing here, he said with a frown, surveying the somewhat desolate world. He knew that to carry out his research, he would need all the necessary materials, equipment, and other supplies, but this world was still underdeveloped and lacked almost everything. Make a list, Weiss anticipated, responding calmly. He had already made arrangements in mind and was confident he could meet Vegapunk's needs. Is that so? Seeing Weiss's straightforwardness, Vegapunk stopped being polite and immediately calmed down, carefully making a long list. The list was densely packed with all sorts of requested items, from rare metals to advanced scientific instruments. The variety was dazzling. A closer calculation revealed the funds required were astronomical, and these items were generally difficult to obtain. No problem, Weiss assured him, glancing over the list. Vegapunk's move was, In fact, a test of Weiss's abilities, wanting to see if he was truly as capable as he claimed, capable of meeting such demanding requirements. Weiss's decisive agreement reassured Vegapunk, his trust in him growing even stronger. Then, Vegapunk's gaze drifted to the nearby spaceship. It was immediately clear it contained a high level of technological sophistication. As long as you don't dismantle it, you can study it as you wish. Weiss, as if sensing Vegapunk's intentions, smiled and granted him some control of the spaceship. Upon hearing this, Vegapunk rubbed his hands together in excitement, his face beaming with uncontrollable joy. For a man obsessed with science like him, the opportunity to study such an advanced spacecraft was a dream come true. He couldn't wait to plunge into studying this new environment and the spacecraft, as if he already saw countless new scientific discoveries beckoning him. The loss of Vegapunk, a brilliant scientist, was undoubtedly a devastating blow to the world government and the Navy, with far-reaching consequences. Many important ongoing research projects were instantly stalled. Take the Pacifist, for example. It was still in the crucial experimental stage, and Vegapunk's departure deprived the project of its core technical support. Further improvements, refinements, and mass production plans were forced to be shelved. The researchers who had previously assisted Vegapunk in his research were now lost in confusion and helplessness. After all, Vegapunk was the only one who had the most intimate knowledge of many key technologies and research strategies. Among these numerous challenges, the most thorny was the situation of Bartholomew the Great Bear. Kuma had a special agreement with the government. According to it, the final stage of his transformation would completely erase his personality, transforming him into a fighting machine solely to obey the world government's orders. However, this complex and meticulous transformation task was beyond the capabilities of anyone other than Vegapunk. Now that Vegapunk had vanished, Kuma's transformation became a daunting challenge. This not only affected the world government's control over its vast military power, but also involved a host of strategic plans and underlying plans. In short, a tangle of issues lay before the five elders, demanding their urgent resolution. "Asshole," Nasujiro cursed angrily, gripping his katetsu tightly. His excitement allowed a flicker of his conqueror's haki to escape uncontrollably. Nasujiro immediately realized the problem. He didn't want to disturb the elder with his impulsive actions. He quickly restrained his haki, took a deep breath, and tried to calm himself. "The news has been blocked," CP0 reported quietly, trying to lighten the mood. "Now the important thing is how to deal with this alien. He has no respect for the world government," Nasujiro said, his brow furrowed, his eyes revealing a mixture of disgust and vigilance. In his view, Weiss's actions seriously threatened the world government's authority and ruling order, and some method must be found to sanction him. "Issue a bounty," Moss suggested. "Reason?" Topman asked immediately. "Subversion of the regime, undermining the royal family," Topman replied without hesitation. In their eyes, any excuse could be made up. "Okay," someone agreed. Agree. They believed that issuing a high bounty would, on the one hand, attract pirates and bounty hunters to track Weiss down, creating trouble for him. On the other hand, it would demonstrate to the outside world the world government's zero-tolerance attitude towards anyone who dared to challenge its authority, thus acting as a deterrent. In this way, the bounty order for Weiss was quickly finalized after discussion among the five elder stars. The bounty was temporarily set at 2 billion Baileys. A new storm surrounding Weiss was about to set off on this sea. Chapter 299 Stealing. The first bounty offered was a whopping 2 billion berries, unprecedented in the history of the sea. Even pirates who had committed heinous crimes and overthrown entire nations would have struggled to secure such a high bounty. Simply overthrowing a single nation certainly wouldn't be worth such a high reward. Therefore, the sharp-minded and intelligent individuals of the sea knew full well that something earth-shattering must have occurred to warrant such a high reward from the world government. And this time, the world government's information blockade was incredibly tight, impenetrable. Even Morgans, the most well-informed, who usually scooped up all sorts of scoops, was completely unaware of any concrete news this time. However, Morgans, a veteran in the news industry, had a wealth of experience and keen intuition, so he had some guesses. After much deliberation, Morgans finally decided to call Weiss's Den Mushi, hoping to get some information out of him and see if he could dig up some big news. Blue the Den Mushi chimed, its distinctive sound echoing through the silent room. Catcher the connection was connected, and a whistling sound of wind echoed from the inside. At the same time, The anti-eavesdropping den mushy mimicked Weiss's appearance. "What do you want to talk to me about?" Weiss's voice came out of the den mushy, still as calm as ever, without a trace of emotion. "Haha, just wanted to tell you something. The world government has a bounty on your head. The bounty is 2 billion berries." "This is unprecedented," Morgan said excitedly, his voice rising slightly with excitement. To him, this was definitely a piece of extremely big news. "Really?" Weiss's response was flat, as if he had heard something insignificant and didn't take it seriously at all. In his eyes, the world government's actions, like the bounty, were mere minor incidents that wouldn't affect him in the slightest. "You're right, what exactly happened?" Morgans inquired curiously, his mind growing even more certain that Weiss had done something truly significant to provoke such a commotion from the world government. "Nothing much, just took Vegapunk," Weiss said casually, as if he weren't the genius scientist crucial to the world government. "And yet, that's remarkable," Morgans couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Now he finally understood why he hadn't received any information at all. After all, the Vegapunk incident was so complex, the world government was surely doing everything they could to suppress it. Morgan's eyes rolled, his mind racing. He knew that if he reported this, not only would the world government retaliate, but he'd also have a hard time explaining the source of the information. Furthermore, if he angered Weiss, he'd never get any scoop from him again. With this thought, he abandoned the idea of reporting the incident. "It just so happens I need your help." Morgans felt that maintaining good contact with Weiss was paramount right now. Perhaps he could get more big news from him in the future. So, without hesitation, he agreed to help Weiss, hoping to use this opportunity to build a closer relationship with him. "Haha, no problem," Morgan said with a hearty laugh, a hint of flattery in his voice. "Where are you now?" Morgans asked, figuring that knowing Weiss's location would make it easier to contact him if anything happened. "West Sea, the Kingdom of Flowers," Weiss said slowly raising his gaze toward the distant horizon. At that moment, he stood firmly on a vast expanse of ice. Like a giant mirror, the ice field shimmered in the sun's relentless light, a dazzling brilliance that almost stunned the eyes, yet was so beautiful it was impossible to look away. Beneath that impenetrable ice sheet lay countless treasures, densely packed together. These treasures came in a variety of forms. Some were meticulously encased in exquisitely crafted chests, their patterns and decorations embodying their preciousness and extraordinary value. Others lay scattered haphazardly among the ice, radiating an alluring radiance even without any strategic placement. This was the renowned Jade Ice Sheet, the locus of treasures passed down through generations of the 8 Treasures Navy, housing the vast wealth accumulated over centuries. The ice of this ice sheet was practically indestructible, its strength beyond imagination. Even the most powerful cannons could not leave a single scratch on it. According to the tradition of the 8 Treasures Navy, only the leader of each generation, relying on his supreme power and the unique 8-Chong Fist technique, could crack the jade ice sheet that protected the treasure. And this generation's leader was none other than the renowned pirate King Jiao. Back then, King Jiao's steel hard awl had been his pride and joy, its powerful tip giving him the upper hands in countless battles. However, in a fierce clash with Garp, his prized awl was crushed by Garp's powerful hammer, and ever since, he could no longer use his own strength to break the jade ice cap. Because of this, the 8 Treasures Navy's centuries of accumulated wealth had now been lost to Weiss. Weiss slowly raised his hands and gently separated them. An invisible yet immensely powerful force instantly surged from his grasp. The jade ice cap, once seemingly indestructible, cracked like fragile glass, gradually cracks spreading until it shattered completely, revealing a mountain of treasure within. The treasure shone with an even more dazzling brilliance in the sunlight. Without warning, a vast black hole appeared, like the mouth of a bottomless beast. A staggeringly powerful suction surged from the black hole, like a hungry, prehistoric beast devouring everything in its fury. Treasures, once scattered across the ice sheet, gleaming with an alluring light, were instantly swept up by the force and flown toward the black hole. They converged in the air, forming a magnificent spectacle. From a distance, they resembled a massive golden tornado swirling and swirling. The dazzling golden light, shimmering in the sunlight, created a stark and eerie contrast with the blackness of the cavern. The suction continued uninterrupted, drawing away all the treasure without a trace after a full half hour. The once glittering mountain of treasure vanished completely, leaving not a trace behind, as if it had never even been there. After all the treasure had been sucked away, Weiss calmly clasped his hands together. The now empty, precious jade ice cap he had broken open, began to slowly recover as if gently caressed by an invisible hand. The ice layer above it rapidly spread and merged, soon regaining its former indestructible form. However, now, the precious treasures that had accumulated for centuries were no longer within it, leaving only silence and emptiness. Chapter 300 Grand Tesoro. Welcome to the World Economic News headquarters. Morgans enthusiastically spread his wide wings in an exaggerated welcome. Your base is quite nice. Weiss nodded slightly, his eyes scanning the surroundings. The World Economic News headquarters was uniquely built, with every possible facility in an ingenious layout. Ha ha ha, Morgans couldn't help but chuckle at Weiss's praise. This mobile aerial base had taken him so much painstaking effort to build, and it had always been a source of pride for him. Now that Weiss had recognized it, he was naturally delighted. Morgans then cordially welcomed Weiss to his office. As Weiss entered, he quickly turned and closed the door. The door slowly swung shut, instantly blocking out all outside views and creating a relatively private space. I wonder if there's anything you can do for me, Morgans asked with a smile, inviting Weiss to sit on the sofa. He knew Weiss had come to him with something important. After all, Weiss's style meant he wouldn't come to the World Economic News headquarters unless absolutely necessary. I need to buy some things, Weiss said directly, handing the list to Morgans. Morgans took the list and glanced at it casually, frowning slightly. This won't be easy. There's a lot of contraband in it, he smacked his lips. Many of the items on the list were strictly controlled and difficult to obtain legally. Gathering them would be no easy task. However, this wasn't a problem for Morgans. He had been working in the underworld for many years and had established an extensive network of contacts. In this shady world, he was a well-known broker with an excellent reputation. He calmly picked up the phone on the table and expertly dialed 2 numbers. Once the call was connected, he didn't say anything more than simply saying he had a big business deal to do. Upon hearing Morgan's voice and hearing about the big deal, the other party expressed their willingness to cooperate. Next, I'll take you to an interesting place, Morgan said mysteriously to Weiss, his signature smile returning after he hung up. Amidst the vast and mysterious waters of the New World, a massive ship, resembling a behemoth, drifted silently. While it might be called a giant ship, its scale far surpassed that of an ordinary vessel. It resembled a bustling city, leisurely floating on the surface of the sea. It was the world-renowned Grand Tesoro, the world's largest entertainment city. This unique city, an independent nation recognized by the world government, had its own unique operating rules and flourishing scene. Presiding over this fantastical entertainment city was none other than Guild Tesoro, known as the Golden Emperor. Leveraging the power of the gold fruit, he had made a name for himself in the New World. Tesoro was a world-leading business genius, his life story a legendary one. In just 12 years, he had risen from penniless slavery to become the world's richest man, possessing immense wealth and controlling 20% of the world's berries. His wealth and influence were so vast that he could easily mobilize the power of the world government. Such a rapid rise and achievement is rare in the history of the world. How is it? Isn't it spectacular? As Weiss and Morgan set foot on the bustling Grand Tesoro together, Morgans, like an enthusiastic tour guide, enthusiastically introduced Weiss to the world's largest entertainment city. It's just so, Weiss replied calmly. His eyes as calm as water, without any emotion. In his eyes, this so-called world's largest entertainment city was nothing but a minor event compared to the land of nothingness, unable to stir the slightest ripple in his heart. That's truly heartbreaking. Just then, a figure appeared before them. The man was dressed in an extremely exaggerated outfit, completely covered in gold. He wore a dazzling array of gold jewelry, including gold necklaces, earrings, and a gold-encrusted hat. His gray-green hair was neatly combed back, and he usually wore pink clothes and pants, giving him an air of both luxury and a unique sense of arrogance. It was none other than Guild Tesoro, the master of this city. This is my greatest masterpiece, Tesoro said with a frown, a hint of anger flickering in his eyes. Everyone, even the high-ranking celestial dragons, was struck by its grandeur when they first saw the Grand Tesoro, but this man, with such a casual assessment of just average, was infuriating. This planet is but a speck of dust in the universe, and the city is but a speck of dust within that dust, Weiss said with a calm demeanor. The world he had experienced and witnessed had long since transcended the boundaries of this planet. Compared to Tesoro, their horizons were simply on a different level. Guild Tesoro was speechless after hearing Weiss's words. He opened his mouth, wanting to retort, but found himself unable to find the right words. After all, Weiss's words, though blunt and harsh, also held an irrefutable truth. "Alright, we're here to discuss business," Morgan said, not wanting to let a few words derail the conversation. He tried to steer the conversation back on track, hoping that both sides could put aside their disagreements and discuss further business matters. "Follow me," Tesoro muttered, walking ahead without looking back. Weiss and Morgans exchanged a glance before following him at a leisurely pace. The group weaved through the bustling yet somewhat noisy city streets, soon arriving before a towering building. This structure, the city's tallest landmark, soared into the sky, seemingly vying for supremacy. They then boarded a dedicated elevator and ascended to the top floor. As the elevator doors slowly opened, they were greeted by a spacious and luxurious office. A massive floor-to-ceiling window framed one side of the office, offering a breathtaking view of the entire Grand Tesoro city. The dazzling lights, bustling streets, bustling crowds, and the shimmering sea in the distance all combined to create a dreamlike spectacle. Meanwhile, besides the group, another person quietly waited in the room. This person was the renowned warehouse owner Kibison, a renowned figure in the underworld. He holds a significant position in the dark world's commercial landscape, controlling the supply of numerous dark goods. The resources and connections he wields are of paramount importance in this shadowy underworld. Kibison, dressed in a dark suit that's understated yet sophisticated, wore a half smile, his eyes revealing the shrewdness and cunning of a seasoned businessman. He raised his head slightly and glanced at Tesoro, Weiss, Morgans, and the others who had entered. His gaze swept over them one by one, silently assessing them. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.